can't remember it myself. I'm a little rusty on it.
I'll hum it for you.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. How is everybody doing today? It's Wednesday. All right. Yeah. Actually woke up with some energy today. Man, this light really, you really can't tell the difference between when I have my light on these days. I think it's because it's honestly pretty cheap light, but that, we'll fix that someday in the future. Anyway, let's do the intro really quick and then get into it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you might be watching this. My name is Josh and welcome to my channel. On here we talk news, politics, and current events. So, topics are pretty clear today. We actually really only have like one article to read and then we're just going over some fun videos. So, yeah, strap on, whatever the fuck it is that you do. And, yeah. Let's get started. Okay, so oh, I forgot to grab water. I'll do that at some point in the middle of the stream. So Donald Trump appeared on Fox News's Sean Hannity's show for a town hall the other day. I believe it was actually yesterday. There's a debate tonight. So right before the debate, I think the night before the debate, they decided to host a town hall with Trump only. And he had some interesting things to say. To say the least. Let's just watch this clip. This has been making the rounds on regular news sites, on Twitter a little bit I saw. So let's go take a look and see what the hullabaloo is exactly. Oh, I need my headphones, right?
Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight, you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Wow.
He's going crazy.
So the only thing I saw of this was that Dictator, it was like cut out very much. It was like Dictator quote day one. Wow, just coming out and saying it right out the gate. Wow. You got to respect the honesty. You really got to respect the honesty.
Retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
for?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
That guy in the background.
I want to close the border, and I want to drill.
That's
drill,
not
drill.
That's not.
No, no.
That's not retribution.
I'm gonna be. He keeps.
Look at, like, honest to God, man. I swear, dude. There's like a fucking genre of human being that's like a Trump fan. They're like, they sit like this. They've got like the hat real low, and they just like, good God.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, "No, other than day one."
Other than day one, right?
And we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
So
okay?
that sounds to me like you're going back to the.
Yeah, I can't say I'm super surprised that his audience would like cheer like crazy for that. Hi, River. Can you not enter the cable zone? No, go the other way. Go the other way. There, you do not need to go the cable route. Okay, so let's like talk about this like super quickly, because there's really not a lot. Like, this is pretty low hanging fruit. There's not that much to this. Plain and simple, Trump goes out there. Sean Hannity throws him the curve, like the fucking slow ball of slow balls. What is it? The easy. What is the term? When you give somebody like a layup, basically. Like, Sean Hannity goes into ask, like, look, man, you're not gonna abuse your power, right? And any like sane person would answer and be like, of course not. I'm going to do what is in my power as the president of the United States to put the American people first. That's what you say when you want to say yes, but you can't answer yes. But this guy goes out there and just says the thing. He just says, yeah, I'm gonna be, like the first, like, but only on day one, because dictators, we know, are famously level-headed and don't infringe upon when it's a dictator, they only take a bit of power, only the amount of power that they always said they were going to take. Like, this is one of those. And like, let's keep in mind, the honest part of that exchange was the part where he says, it'd only be day one because I'm gonna close the border and drill or whatever. And like, let's be really clear here. All of that was the whole drilling the border, as if that's an issue, as if that's the thing that he's going to do under this. I'm going to be a dictator for a day, then I'm going to be then I'm going to be a democratic, president, a leader of the people through popular rule. No, he says close the border and drill because those are the two things that Republican voters will mindlessly cheer for. And it gives him cover because he'll say, when people say, Donald Trump, You said you'd be a dictator if you were elected into office. Can you assure the American people that that you will not infringe upon their rights? Can you condemn those comments of yours? And followers of his and defenders of Trump are going to fervently like they are going to go to the fucking mat saying, oh yeah, Trump said he'd be a dictator to do these two things. Like, he obviously isn't actually being a dictator. He's not Mussolini. But actually, let's go take a look, because I did see what's it called? I did see a video from Fox News. So let's go take a look at how they're gonna defend this, because I have a general sense of how they're going to. Can we pause for a second? Can we chill out for a second? I have a feeling that their defense is going to be squarely based on, like, look, guys, he was obviously just joking, and what he really wants to do is clean up the border crisis that Biden has allowed to grow, and drill so that we can finally reach American energy independence. Those are what they're going to say, because those are always the covers. What's actually happening here, or what he is actually saying, is, am I going to be a dictator? Am I going to abuse my power as the presidency like I did before? Obviously. And he's going to say, I'm only going to do it for like a day. I'm only going to be a dictator for like a day. But he's the president for 4 years. He's going to abuse his power for 4 entire years. Now, what that looks like? Well, we have Project 2025. We know what that's going to look like. We know what what organizations are planning for and planning to do. But let's go take a look. Let's go take a look, shall we?
Former President Donald Trump sitting down with Sean Hannity in Iowa last night, where the Republican caucus will kick off in just 6 short weeks. It was an hour-long town hall, but
6
it was
weeks,
this quick
wow.
exchange that
You know,
caught everyone's
I guess
attention.
that is like, yeah.
The media has been focused on this and attacking you.
Yeah.
Under no circumstances. You are promising America tonight.
Trump, yeah.
Never.
Yeah, Trump says he will not become dictator if elected. And it's just like, that's not what he said. Like, he said he'd be a dictator for 1 day. And if you know your history of dictators, they usually don't bow out of power after 1 day.
Abuse power.
Because this is the thing also, right? We all understand this, that for Trump, winning this election is skirting jail time. Trump understands that for him to avoid jail time, he is running literally for president for his life. Because if he is not, if he does not make it to the presidency, this dude's probably spending time in jail or going to be fined so heavily that he is going to be like destitute. Like, he understands what's at stake in this election, and it's not democracy. It's not the future of, it's not the future stability of the country. It is Donald Trump is fucking cooked if he does not win the presidency.
As retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Yeah.
He's going crazy. Except for day one.
Like, imagine being a Fox News viewer and having to, like, corral the dissidents in your brain, reading the chyron that reads Trump will not become dictator if elected, Trump says, and then having to hear with your ears him say he would do so only on day one. And that's the assurance you get.
Meaning?
Just trust me.
I want to close the border, and I want to drill. He says,
by the way, 2 things that, like, you don't need to be a dictator for. Do you notice?
We're closing the border.
And we're vows to drill. Yep, Trump vows to drill, close border on day 1, because they don't want to reckon with the fact that he's gonna abuse power. Yep, he's gonna abuse power. What's funny is Hannity didn't even say the dictator line. Trump did. I don't know if they'll show it. I'm sure they will. I mean,
not a dictator.
Fox News contributor and
they had to cut it off. Yeah, they had to cut it off.
Now, Joe, when we say that
yeah, because the quote is, I'm not going to be a dictator except for day 1, which it's like, Okay, sure, bud.
Caught everybody's attention. We mean that it caught the media's attention. The New York Times has a headline: Trump deflects question on retribution and law breaking at town hall. CNN: Trump sidesteps question when asked if he plans to abuse powers if reelected.
Also, he didn't sidestep. He just said he would. Like, what? Like, I don't understand the CNN headline. Trump sidesteps? Where was the sidestep? Where was the sidle? I saw none of that. This dude just said, yeah, I'm gonna reserve all of my dictatorial rule. I'm gonna reserve this for the first day, as I do. And like, let's be clear, if we saw if Trump gets elected in 2024, right? If he sits back in office on January 20th, 2025, on day one, are you gonna see drilling and closing the border? I'm sure you'll see those two. They will be the mildest of abuses planned by that administration. Like, they've made it rather obvious that they're like, yeah, we're gonna come on, Republican voters, come on, look, we'll keep the immigrants out. We know you hate the immigrants. We'll keep the immigrants out. We'll also, we'll drill for some more oil because that's like a culture war thing that you all are obsessed with. But like, just ignore the part where we infringe on people's rights and dismantle the what's the word I'm looking for, the actual internal functioning of our government. Yeah, just ignore the dismantling of our government. It's fine. Like, that's what that's what he's saying. That's what they're copying to. Augustus, he already looks like Augustus Group. No, I'm just joking. I know you're.
And Rolling Stone's headline: Trump to Hannity on whether he'll abuse power as president, and they included a shrug emoji. Also,
yes,
the Biden campaign posted on social media that Trump said that he'd be a dictator on day one. Is that?
I mean, that is
assessment of what he said?
Is that your assessment of the exact words that he said?
No. Not at all, Carly.
He might actually do it.
He was
probably
saying,
will.
And what I took away from it before you read those.
There's nothing more that right wing autocrats enjoy more than declaring that there's like a crisis or a war or something to galvanize, at the very least, their base, but to like galvanize support and then do whatever the fuck that they want. Like, we're seeing it right now in Israel. That is basically what's happening in Israel. You have Netanyahu whose population suffered like a really traumatic terrorist attack and has decided like, all right, cool. Now I can seize some power. Now I can galvanize support around myself, which isn't working spectacularly well, especially since like they're learning like the 9/11 lesson that we learned a lot quicker, but obviously not quick enough.
Headlines that he would likely use executive orders to close the border and drill back here in America again. And of course, the easiest bet you could make is seeing on other networks this morning having a complete and total meltdown over that comment when they know exactly what he meant. All while ignoring this fact. I can guarantee you won't see this.
Well, he's going to say that I'm going to do these really mild things that all Republican presidents do.
And actions in his first 100 days, including multiple executive orders and actions on day one.
Well, Biden came to office like during COVID. It kind of makes sense that he'd be signing a bunch of executive actions to like stabilize certain elements of not just the economy, but like U.S. society in general, right? Like, also the amount of executive orders you pass isn't really that like at the end of the day, executive order, like somebody passing a ton of executive orders can be read as like super negative, but it all kind of depends on the context of those orders. I don't really agree with the assessment that like the more executive orders you pass, the worse. At the end of the day, you're president, you're exercising your ability to see out your vision. If you don't have a Congress, if you don't have a House that's willing to send bills to your desk that are that align with your agenda, then like, yeah, you do what you're going to do. It's kind of how the presidency works to a degree. Obviously, there are abuses under that system. But, at the end of the day, like all presidents have the ability to do so. So it's not like it's value neutral until you at least to me, it's fairly value neutral until you like analyze the actual orders.
Then Trump or Obama or George W. Bush. So much for the whole dictator thing. Overall, I think that Trump showed even more energy than usual. He fed off the crowd in ways which was extremely passionate, by the way, the crowd that was there, as we saw.
I mean, yeah, the dude's a showman.
You would never see that kind of crowd or reaction with the current president. Overall,
yeah, no
Trump
shit.
sounded like a guy with the wind at his back, and that wind is real, as we're seeing in poll after poll, especially in swing states, and perhaps that's why you see such a
man,
panic.
is there a person under like 60 in this fucking crowd? Like, good God.
On the Democratic side, in terms of that dictator comment, but clearly Trump knew exactly what he was saying and doing.
They're really training their audience over at Fox News to expect him to win too.
And as Carly gave me the look, Joe, you literally took the words right out of my mouth because I said the same thing at the end. Meantime, President Biden telling Democrat donors at a fundraising event, quote, if Trump wasn't running, I'm not sure I'd be running, but we cannot let him win. Joe, what do you make of that?
Well, it's one thing to say, Todd, I want 4 more years because I want to fix and improve X, Y, Z. I'm the best man for the job because I have the best ideas, or I could unify the country, or I have...
Well, okay. So he's actually kind of hitting on a decent point. I don't know if it's actually that salient. When it comes down to it, Biden is unpopular, not because he's choosing to run against Trump, not because he is oppositional to Trump. People aren't like grr Biden because they like Trump. They're grr Biden because he's not especially lately he's been like fucking up majorly on the Israel question and not differentiating himself from the Republican Party, which is leaving a lot of left-wing voters in the Democratic Party incredibly angry, and also kind of turning off like more moderate, like centrist Democrats who have no interest in seeing like civilians be bombed and like our validation of that. So like it's like Biden kind of has created a lot of his own problems. Trump, I don't think, is really that big of a factor in why he's unpopular. He's unpopular because he doesn't have a lot of energy, and the energy that people have for him is mostly negative. Milquetoast establishment, yeah, which is like most presidents are criminals. Like most presidents preside over a like incredible like illegal surveillance state and military operations abroad. So like, yeah. And it's just like, if you're not going to distinguish yourself enough, then people, you're not going to garner a whole lot of support, especially if you're not strong on those on those distinguishing elements, which he's not.
Business to accomplish. Instead, to stay, well, if I were running against Ron DeSantis or Nikki Haley, I'd probably drop out. But since it looks like Trump will be the nominee, I guess I'll stick around. That is not
also
leadership.
The question would be
that
like, who's up next after Biden?
President if you think
is
you're
Kamala?
the best person for the job, not because you think the other guy is not. So let's see Joe Biden do a town hall. Let's hear what his plan is around the economy that most Americans are still very dissatisfied with, about crime that many Americans don't feel safe in their own communities because of. Test scores came out yesterday. They are horrific when compared to the likes of China and other advanced nations. And you saw they are a crime that many Americans don't feel safe in their own communities because of. Test scores came out yesterday. They are horrific when compared to the likes of China communities because of. Test scores came out yesterday. They are horrific when compared to the likes of China and other advanced nations. And you saw Bill Melugin report yesterday.
Oh, okay,
okay. People pouring to the country.
Test scores, okay.
So overall, Joe Biden has to want the job, not just say, vote for me because the other guy's bad. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, that's like kind of that's kind of why they're highlighting the dictator comments, right? Because Biden doesn't have, while I do think Biden on paper should have a stronger argument for himself, he just like, I can, like how many articles can, like, I've seen like 1,000 articles that are like, Biden should be able to run on the economy. These are the reasons why he's not. Like for all, like where we are in terms of our economy is so much better than where we were before. Like with all the labor action going on, like you're not going to see any of that under Trump, right? So like the economy isn't, the problem with the economy is like it's really, really difficult to get an economy that I think works for everybody and everybody can kind of feel it, you know? Like, the economy is rather, I don't want to say ephemeral, but it's like somebody goes out, right? Like, this is what I see a lot of the times when people talk about the economy. They go to the store, they go and buy, maybe they go get gas, maybe they go buy like butter. And 1 week, gas or butter might be really expensive. And they'll get really like, oh, can you believe how expensive this item is, right? Like last year, 5 years ago, or I remember when it used to only cost this much for this item, right? They go on about their lives. Maybe a week passes, 2 weeks passes. They go back, they go buy that item. Maybe it's dropped in price. Not significantly, maybe not even like back to the level that they were thinking, but it like drops by like half. They don't really notice it. They don't really comment on it. They just buy it and they pretty much just continue to move on with life. And they don't think about it after that. How many times I've heard people scoff at gas prices and like will complain about gas prices. I just got gas. Within like a pretty short period, gas went from $4 over down to below $3, hovering around $3. I think now it's like $2.89, like that. But how many people it's stuck in their mind when gas was higher than when it finally dropped? And there's kind of a reason for that. It's mainly because we are really good at remembering things that have negative, that like get negative responses out of us. We are really good at remembering when we were upset about something. We're not as good as remembering when that thing stopped upsetting us, right? And that's just kind of how people work. People are still complaining about will still be complaining about gas prices even though they've come down. And when people ask them like, hey, gas prices have gone down now, how do you feel about that? They'll still say things like, well, it should have never been at X price to begin with. And that's kind of the problem with running on the economy. It has to be like, you have to run an economy like Republicans do, where you spend, you cut a bunch of taxes. You don't have to ever be there for the consequences of that, because the consequences of running that kind of economy you don't see until years down the road, usually after you've lost an election, or when your re-election, after you've already won re-election, you can't run again. It doesn't really matter anymore. Like at the end of the day, you have to really run this moronic economy that obviously is going to result in bad long-term outcomes. But if you can make everything nice in the short term, people are going to take more notice. So that's so what does Biden run on? He runs on, Trump says he's going to be a dictator. He runs on, he should be running on the massive labor push that's happening under his administration. He should be running on those things. He's just not. I don't know why. I would assume it's I genuinely don't know why you wouldn't run on a better labor movement, why you wouldn't run on a more on something like the Inflation Reduction Act. First of all, why you wouldn't fire what's his fucking face at the Fed, who keeps hiking interest rates even though inflation is falling, but because of those interest rates keep going up, because they keep the interest rate up so high. That's why corporations and companies aren't lowering prices as quick as they could be, because they're still seeing a massive cost to borrow money. So they're not going to bring those costs down yet. It's just one of those things where the Biden administration on economics has done a lot of good, but has also kept a lot of bad from the old administration, that it's kind of stunted a lot of growth that we could be seeing. And it's quite frankly, stunted a lot of the impact for actual voters. But yeah. What's your preferred candidate? A Democrat, unfortunately. I don't really have a preferred individual candidate, because it kind of seems like we're like, as far as I can tell, it's Biden or Trump. And in that, I'd have to default to Biden. The way I vote, you know, it kind of sucks because I think we're given this really, this really idealistic perspective or approach to voting or understanding of what voting is here in the United States. You know, where we're told like, oh, voting is you giving your voice, or voting is, you know, your chance to say, to speak your voice to representatives. As I've gotten older, I've bought into that a lot less and seen voting more as the pretty base level strategic involvement that you can do. If you don't do any organizing outside of voting every 4 years in an election, your vote is strategic, which is you need to keep the ball on your side as best as possible to ensure future positive outcome, like future positive outcomes. That's pretty much all I see it as, to a degree. You know, you are reserving the right to continue to voting Democrat over Republican, sadly. Gas prices down is not a hot headline. Exactly. Yeah. Like, it's just, you know, there's a million stories of gas prices are going up, what you need to know. And there's zero stories of gas prices going down. It's not, people don't get animated by that sort of stuff. Will America reach an Iran style gerontocracy? I don't know about that. I mean, I guess I don't. What is technically definitionally I'm assuming it's like gerontocracy. Let's see. A state or society of group governed by old people. I mean, we kind of already are. Like, our elected representatives, like, what is it? Average. Let's take a look. What is it? Age of representative. Let's see. The average member of House was 58. For the Senate, it's 64. And for the Senate, it's 64. And obviously, Biden is a fucking dinosaur. So, I mean, the fact that this like the only I would say we're not really far off from that. I would honestly say we're basically there already. And it's also not about age. Like, it's not always about age. Bernie is old as fuck, but Bernie has ideas that are youthful. Bernie has ideas that have youthful energy for them. Whereas most of these people have, they came up in politics during just such a different time. But it's why people like Matt Gaetz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, AOC, the Squad, people like that. Are such a breath of fresh air. It's not just that they're younger, it's that their ideas and they've come up in a different era of politics. D-Clams, honestly, think biggest problem with Biden is his lack of communication skill and always looking frail and tired. Makes America seem kind of weak on the global stage if your leader gets confused walking off a stage. I can kind of agree. I would say that's like really surface level. Like, certainly the average voter, like my mom does not follow politics, and she also would definitely she would absolutely I've heard her say like, oh, he's too old, he's too frail, he's too this and too that. Like, that is definitely a sentiment with like average Americans. In terms of like the world stage, I don't really think that I just don't think it's lunchroom politics on the world stage the same way. Like, I do think there's rhetoric that goes out from certain kinds of leaders that Biden is too old and frail and we're strong, but I think those are from the same people who always are looking to make their opponents look weaker with like really shallow critiques, and also make their opponents look stronger when they want to look like they're the underdogs. Like, it doesn't help. Boomers are refusing to die. Fuck yeah. Like, I mean, fuck. Like, unfortunately, the boomer generation, granted, the boomer generation is falling off a good bit, but I mean, certainly not quick enough, and certainly like, you know, I mean, how? Let's see. Like, Jesus. Let's see. Largest population age group USA. The largest age group is 30 to 34, thank God. So we have 333 million Americans. 70, what was that number I just found? Sorry, I realized I switched back. Yeah, out of 333 million Americans, 76 of them are boomers. So, I mean, that's still a huge fucking gap. Yeah, I mean, 1 in 6 people were 65 or older, yeah. Like, yeah, I mean, we just have a problem. And again, it just comes down to these people's politics are as old as they are. You know, they just came up in such a different political time. And like, you know, you want to know what's also worse? Like, boomers also do have a lot of wealth and power. But you know what also really worries me is I remember watching I don't remember, it was Vice. It might have been Vice. It was some documentary on YouTube. And it was about a retirement community in Florida called, what is it? What is it? It's like the something Florida retirement. It was like the something community. Is it the Villages? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's this like, community, right? It's the Villages. It's down in Florida. Its whole thing is a fucking sanctuary for old ass boomers. And it like harkens back. It harkens back to like the 1960s and late 50s, so that, you know, people who look like this can feel youthful again or whatever. And what fucks me up about this isn't really like, what gets me isn't that like I don't have a problem with these communities of old people enjoying their retirement. The thing that terrifies me is the idea that these people are pretty much living in these kinds of like money suck communities, right? Like, they get to this age, they have all of this money, their kids are, let's be honest here, struggling. Like, a bunch of kids, like people my age, can't buy houses because the housing market is so fucked. And what are like the grandparents or parents doing? They're moving into these communities where they're buying cheap housing in Florida that won't resell incredibly well, and they're just fucking shredding money, right? All of their retirement funds, all of their 401ks, all of the inheritance that like my generation and the generation above me, Gen X, is going to see is going to be fucking peanuts compared to what boomers saw when their parents retired, when their parents eventually died. Like, that's the thing that actually kind of terrifies me, is that these people are fucking like lighting all of their money on fire at the very end of their lives, and are going to end up leaving their children, an entire generation, with almost nothing. Meanwhile, all of these developments, all of these already incredibly wealthy corporations and like real estate developers, they're going to make bank. They're going to do really well. But all of that money is not going to go towards people who, like, you know, maybe they were able to buy a house, but maybe, like, you know, when mom and dad died, they're like, all right, we sell the house, we can actually pay off the rest of our mortgage. Maybe we can put money towards our retirement finally. You know, like, you know, maybe like we can send one of the kids to college now. None of that's going to happen. None of it. Because when these folks die off, they will have spent so much of their money burning it on like getting drunk, hanging out, bullshitting around in retirement, that like gone. All of it gone. Generational wealth deleted. Like, that's what I'm worried we're gonna see, is just an absolute like degradation of the number one way to grow wealth you know, in the United States. The number one surefire way is generational wealth, and these people are setting fucking fire onto that generational wealth. Their kids, like, it's just, and that's what's terrifying. When that comes, when that wave comes, that's gonna be the real kicker, in my opinion. Because, like, keep in mind, these houses aren't gonna sell incredibly well. Like, when they go to sell these houses, they're inside of this, like, already like fucking created community, and they already have like standards that are growing lower and lower and lower because the resale value, because they're building so many of them, that like stock is so high, the prices for the end, like people are constantly like coming in and dying and like reselling. The resale value is not going to be super high because you wait a week, there's going to be another resale up. You wait another week, there's going to be 2 more. So like, that's the crazy part to me. That's the part that I'm actually worried about and concerned about. But yeah. But anyway, so did you guys hear? Kevin McCarthy apparently, after following in the footsteps of was it John Tester who left after he bowed out a speaker? What were they called? The speaker during Obama? Oh, Boehner. Yeah. So yeah, following the footsteps of John Boehner after stepping down as Speaker of the House. Well, John Boehner stepped down. Kevin McCarthy got ousted. Kevin McCarthy is now leaving at the end of the year the House of Representatives. Jesus, what a fucking hell. Top fundraiser for the Republican Party during his time.
All right, quiet on the set.
Like,
all right, here we go. 5, 4.
Man.
17 years ago, I was elected to a seat in Congress that I couldn't get an internship for. Today, I sit here having served as your whip, leader, and as the 55th Speaker of the House. As the son of a firefighter from Bakersfield,
man,
my story is the story of America. For me, every moment came with a great deal of devotion and responsibility.
And this guy, like, let's remember, this guy did not step down after you're playing this music. This dude did not step down, with the respect of his colleagues and, a handshake and a hug. No. This guy got fucking ousted. Fucking ousted. My dude is what? The first or second? Like, what is he? Like, McCarthy, what was he? Is he the first, actually? No, he can't be the first. History? If I do history, let's see. Is the only speaker to be voted out of the job. Just kidding. Jesus. Good God.
Giving my best to all of you has been my greatest honor. I'm proud of what we have accomplished. We won a House majority
fucking
twice.
Wolves in the background watching this dude
more Republican women, veterans, and minorities to Congress than ever before.
There's your problem.
We reduced the deficit by over $2 trillion while protecting the full faith and credit of our nation. We kept our government operating and our troops paid while wars broke out around the world. Traveling the country and serving with all of you.
And again, let's remember, again, I said this at the top, but like, top fundraiser for the Republican Party in the House. Top fundraiser. This is the guy who was holding the money back, and he still couldn't get past, and they still ousted him. Good God. I don't really have much. This is really just let him cope.
Far more people that want to build something than those who want to tear it down.
Those who want to tear it down.
I have faith in this country because America is more than a country. America is an idea. Today, I am driven by the same purpose that I felt when I arrived in Congress. But now,
is Matt Gaetz in any of these photos? Or
my passion in a new arena.
What is his
passion? While I'll be departing the House at the end of this year,
he's gonna run for Senate.
I will never ever give up fighting for this country.
Is his passion sitting on his ass somewhere in
to all those who have supported me through the years? especially our constituents,
what are you doing, Kat?
Thank
Get
you
out of here.
from the bottom of my heart. We did our part.
Wait, what is this passion that he's pursuing?
Highest, we rose to
he's
the
not going to say, is he?
We were willing to risk it all, no matter the odds, no matter the personal cost. Simply put,
my dude did pay a pretty hefty personal cost, I will say.
God bless you, and God bless America.
Yeah, so it should go without saying, McCarthy began his speakership on rocky ground, continued it, and got ousted. And he's now going to go fuck off and, I don't know, fucking fish for the rest of his life or something. I really highly doubt we're going to see him in public office again. He's pretty much been labeled a rhino, he got, for deigning to, honestly, I don't even remember what the fake issue was that got him, ousted, but, yeah. I mean, couldn't happen to a nicer guy, I guess. Probably shouldn't have, what's it called? Probably shouldn't have, what's the word I'm looking for? Probably shouldn't have, allowed the Trump faction of his party, the America First faction, gain as much traction as they did. But it's the price you pay, I guess. All right. Republicans would be so much more likable if they were transparent about their intentions. I mean, the problem is that their intentions are fucking monstrous. Like, if they were to do that, they would kind of reveal themselves to being the authoritarians that they are, unfortunately. So, I mean, at the very least, that's what I do like about Trump, is he's mostly honest. Like, the dude is at least like, will just be like, look, I'll be a dictator, all right? I do it only for a day, though. And it's like, yeah, he's being honest. He will abuse his power in office for only a day. Take his word on that part. And that's also why the Republican Party doesn't really fucking hates when Trump goes out there and speaks, because he's a fucking liability. He pulls them out of cover. They hide behind, the cover is the just for the border and just for drilling. That ain't just what those two things are. Knows what they want. Don't be slimy about it. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like their base loves the being I sometimes get the feeling like their base. I feel like half of the Republican base definitely thinks that all they want is freedom and democracy or something. Sometimes there's definitely a percentage of their base that has bought in to the Republican lie of freedom and equality and shit like that. There's definitely a part that thinks that that's what they stand for, but there certainly is a part, and I've seen it before, that really like to say the lie and then give you the smirk emoji face, because they know that they're bullshitting, but they have just enough cover that they can always go whoa, that's not what I said. That's not what whoa, are you against? I definitely feel like part of them, because part of Republican politics is own the libs. That's why Trump is so popular with his base, is because he gives them catharsis by upsetting the people that they dislike, which is super sad. That is pathetic as a political compass. But it is, it is it is what they like. They like owning the libs. But yeah. Anyway, let's go take a look. Okay, so in the description I have modern Zionism, right? In the title of the stream. And I want to take a look at two videos and an article by Ryan Grimm. And I kind of want to I want us to really contrast this first interview, and then we'll read an article from Ryan Grimm, and then I want us to watch another interview from both people are Democrats. You'll probably be familiar with both of them. Let's go take a look at first. A few days ago, it was December 3rd. So what was that? On Monday? I guess that would have been Sunday. On Sunday on CNN State of the Union, Pramila Jayapal showed up to speak about the conflict going on over in Israel. So let's go take a look.
Progressive Caucus Chairwoman Pramila Jayapal, thank you for coming. It's nice to see you.
Is there a reason why it's only in the left headphone? What is happening?
With the war.
Am I crazy? Nope. That's how the audio is.
Hamas is to blame.
Forbes, what is happening?
This temporary truce for a few reasons. One is that they refused to release the remaining women, some of whom, sounds like most of whom are 20 to 30-year-old women. They're hostage inside Gaza. They also renewed the military attacks against Israel. You have repeatedly called for Israel to implement an indefinite ceasefire, but given what we have just seen with what I just described, is that realistic?
Well, it's what has to happen, and I do think it's realistic. I think what we saw is after, many weeks of saying we couldn't get to a ceasefire, that was not going to happen. We did have a temporary ceasefire, and what happened? We were able to see a significant number of hostages released. We were able to get humanitarian aid into Gaza, and I think the long-term plan for what happens is incredibly important.
Which I think is actually kind of a decent point, where it's like, well, we did a ceasefire, and like people got out, hostages got released, medicine and aid got to people. So what's the problem here? What if we just continue to do good things instead? But for Israel, that doesn't really feel like good. The good thing to them is the bombing part.
Now you've
Sadly.
seen Vice President Harris made a very strong statement yesterday.
Seriously, what is going on with this? Such a weird audio. It's weird that it's just one
also was very
like headphone.
That if you engage in urban warfare in the way that Israel did in northern Gaza, what you will do is perhaps win a temporary victory or a reprieve, but
the temporary victory of
war.
The temporary victory of genociding a population.
To make sure that we, first of all, do not have the kinds of casualties that we saw in northern Gaza.
Too late.
There's no way to do that with the kind of war that Israel is waging right now on Gaza.
Well, a couple of things. One is, you said it worked. Yes, there were hostages who were released, but it wasn't even an actual hard ceasefire. They were just trying to get another day, and Hamas wouldn't comply. So what makes you think that Hamas would comply with a longer-term ceasefire?
Well, I think this is all about negotiation. Qatar has been incredibly helpful here. It's not clear to me.
What's funny to me is like, I notice there's always an onus. Do you notice there's always an onus on Hamas to do things? Like, do you notice how in the media there seems to be this like real obsession with like, but what is Hamas choosing to engage with? Even though Hamas is a terrorist organization, a terror cell, but like they have no national or global power. They're not a global force. They don't have a military. It's a loose terror org. So it's kind of like why is the onus for a lot of this on Hamas, an incredibly small group with almost no power? Like, why is it that Western media is rather disinterested in engaging in the power dynamic over in Israel? Like, that's a question that we always have to pose to ourselves. Like, if there was a terror organization, to which there are, by the way, operated in the United States, and the United States government was engaging with this organization by bombing civilian populations, why would we be asking the terror organization, like, well, are you guys really putting your best foot forward and negotiating? Like, no, that would be ridiculous. Like, there is a nation state with a fucking army with resources that surpass the other group by 100 times. Like, they're the ones who have the ability to impact the situation, to change the material conditions on the ground. Like, they control all of this. Hamas only operates so long as Israel continues to give them a reason to operate. But modern Zionism is an opportunist. It's about a Solomonic model of empire they feel was promised but never delivered. I have entered Zionist cycles. Religion is at the center. Hamas is like the Mapuche Raiders. Yeah, I mean, like, let's be clear. Like, I'm no fan of Hamas, and certainly they're a fucking jihadist group, but like, that really doesn't, like, the power dynamics are what's, I think, more what should garner our attention a lot more. But yeah, I certainly can't disagree. Like, for whatever reason, and it's really weird, for whatever reason, we don't hold this like neutral position for any other group. If there is any other group that feels like that they should be building this like religious ethnic empire, we don't tolerate that. We like there are white nationalists in the United States who have the same goals of the Zionist movement, but just for white people, and we don't tolerate that. Same, we don't tolerate it from like black nationalists either. Like, it's just, but for whatever reason, and I think most of it, I would assume, is military strategy in the region. For whatever reason, we are what's the word? We are not sympathetic. We are what's the word? We are permissive of this kind of. I mean, we're past rhetoric, right? Like, we're not very permissive of this rhetoric in the United States, but we're permissive of this kind of action in Israel. It's a crazy dynamic. It's insane.
Reporting who was to blame for
you don't believe the Biden administration, that Hamas?
Well, I just think it's very complicated.
Young women?
I think it's very, very complicated. It's not, we don't have all the information in front of us. We obviously can rely on some statements that are made, but I think that
also, let's be honest, the United States has all the information in front of us.
And I think
like,
Qatar has said
the idea that the U.S. intelligence apparatus does not have a 360-degree view of this conflict,
because
it's insane.
This is complex negotiation, and it doesn't happen unless both sides are willing to come to some kind of an agreement. That's how we got the first 7 days.
That's a really important point about both sides being willing to come to an agreement, because regardless of what has happened last week, and let's just say there is a more permanent ceasefire, you are hearing from Hamas leaders over and over again that the brutal massacre.
I'm going to speed this up just a bit.
Israeli civilians was just the beginning, just a rehearsal, and that they want to continue to do it over and over again. So a ceasefire would keep that brutal terrorist regime in place in Gaza.
I don't think that's true.
And it's like, oh, well, they said that. Oh, well, Hamas has said that the terrorist attack on October 7th was the first of many attacks that they are planning. Which, yeah, like, obviously, I don't really see how that's like shocking, controversial, or even notable for people. Yeah. They're a terrorist organization who recruits who recruits its members by exploiting the pain of occupation by Israel. So yeah, as long as the occupation continues to go on, they will continue to do these acts. They will continue to terrorize Israeli citizens, because at the end of the day, they see the occupation as unacceptable, which it is, and this is to them the only way to fight back against it. To them, like, it's become like the political issue is, well, you're occupying these people. What do you think is going to happen if you push these people far enough? They're going to turn to violence. You show them enough violence. You show them that violence is the only language you speak. They will meet you with violence. This is all a situation created by Israel over the last, again, 75 years. They have had 75 years to turn the occupation around and treat Palestinians with the equality that they deserve, but they haven't. And for that, they are paying for it through these terrorist attacks. And, in future ones that are almost assuredly going to happen. They are only less safe as a nation because of the occupation.
True. I think that what is true is that Hamas needs to be taken out. It is a terrorist organization.
How would you do that?
But I think the way to do that, as many terrorism experts
Yeah,
have
pretty
said,
much.
is to create a durable.
We'll also keep in mind, like, AIPAC and the Netanyahu government, like, all of this, do you notice how, like, all of this is really fucking bad for Biden, right? Like this has been a wedge issue for AIPAC and these Zionist orgs, because they know that, like, you know, they know that if Biden comes out against Israel, he is going to lose some support of the Jewish population here in the United States. Like, that's just like that. Like, we know that, right? But what they're betting on is that if they continue to push this administration, they're going to weaken Biden. Like, you know, AIPAC and the rest of them are going to weaken Biden, not only by weakening his, what's the word I'm looking for? Weakening his actual support with voters, but also weaken some of the funding. You can almost bet that AIPAC is threatening to pull funding from quite a few Democrats if they come out against Israel, meaning they are weakening the party, they are weakening the candidacy of Joe Biden, while meanwhile, their alternative, who's their alternative? Trump. Do you think Trump is going to what's the word I'm looking for? Encourage negotiations? Do you think Trump is going to be a steady hand on pulling back on the, like, vicious treatment of the Palestinians by the Netanyahu government? Do you think that's going to happen? Or do you think Trump is going to lean harder into AIPAC's talking points, harder into Zionist talking points, and allow for even more destruction of the Palestinian people? I think this is the long-term play. There is a non-zero chance that this is the long-term plan of the Zionist movement in Israel. That if they can get themselves a president who will be lenient to the most extreme action, they can just completely ethnically cleanse the region and claim all of the territory all the way to the edges of their border. That's what I think. I think that they already have the intention of, like, we're going to take the West Bank. We have already leveled Gaza. We are heading into the South. We are going for all of it. This is how I think they completely solidified their ethno-state over there, because Trump is somebody who will be favorable towards that ethno-state. Biden's County is the most Jewish in history, 7,000 overrepresentation. It's it's a very scientific number you've got there. And let's be clear, like I don't think every Jewish person in that cabinet is necessarily Zionist, but enough of them, and again, enough funding for the party has to go through AIPAC and the likes. What are you doing? Stop it. For it to be, not advantageous, but, like, dangerous for Biden to come out against Israel. Like, it's a cost benefit analysis. And Biden, unfortunately, and the Democrats, unfortunately, have not come to the understanding that this might cost them some money. A pro-Palestinian position will cost them money, but it won't cost them votes. I definitely believe that. But well, maybe you shouldn't walk in front of the screen.
Strong coalition of allies within the Middle East.
Just be careful with that, Kurlash.
With Israel, to make sure
Just be
that
careful
we have
with
a
that.
long-term political solution, that there is an alternative to Hamas to lead in Gaza and to establish a state for Palestinians. This is, we have to condemn what Hamas did on October 7th. We cannot allow for 15,000 Palestinians to date to have been killed, 3/4 of whom are women and children, and say that that is going to help us in the long term. Morally, Dana, but also strategically.
Also, keep in mind, this makes us less safe too here in the United States.
Where
you don't think these terror orgs are going to look at America and go, "You let this happen"?
You're talking about. could make sense. It's just
like,
unclear how you get from here to there.
Is it insane to think that, like, if Trump were to be elected president in 24 and seated in 25, that within 4 years is it insane to think we see a terrorist attack on American soil once again? One, driven by our position on Israel and in Gaza. I don't think that's insane to think. It would certainly be in the favor in Trump's favor. I wouldn't be shocked if there'd be a good reason to just, take power. Just like, can't have an election right now. We're in the middle of a war. Darn. No?
Who's going to get rid of Hamas if there's no continued war? And I think what you're relying on.
That's what they thought back in 2001. And I don't even necessarily think that, like, I don't think that we're at high risk for it. But I do think that, like, if certain people just take intelligence and don't act on it, then yeah, absolutely, we could be the victim of a terrorist attack.
The information and intelligence that Hamas has used its own civilians. The death of civilians it's horrendous. But Hamas has used its own civilians as human shields. Those hospitals and so forth are places where Hamas keeps weapons.
Also, I hate the human shields argument. It's so dumb.
It's Hamas leadership.
It's like, hey, they hid behind civilians. What were they supposed to do?
That you cannot attack a hospital unless there are some circumstances. If rockets are fired from that hospital, that is one thing. But hospitals are protected. We have had refugee camps that are bombed. Right now, there are even the only pediatric hospital in Gaza is not operating. If we want to defeat terrorists, we have to abide by international humanitarian law. That is just my fundamental belief. And that at the end of the day, what we need is a lasting coalition. That is not going to be formed if Israel continues to do what they are doing. And the United States cannot be backers of this kind of indiscriminate bombing. That is my firm belief. We should have conditions on military aid in the same way that we do for every other country.
I want to ask you about
what's terrible is you really can't. I've heard the whole, like, oh, we had to bomb the hospital because it was like a headquarters or something. And, like, the thing that really sucks is I really don't know where to go to, like, figure out how much of this, like, if we've been able to confirm any of that. Like, no third party that I can find has been able to confirm that any of that was true, which is not a good sign. This far out.
It's kind of remarkable that this issue hasn't gotten enough attention globally. Widespread use of rape, brutal rape, sexual violence against Israeli women by Hamas. I've seen a lot of progressive women, generally speaking, they're quick to defend women's rights and speak out against using rape as a weapon of war, but downright silent on what we saw on October 7th and what might be happening inside Gaza right now.
Wait. As a leftist, somebody who is, like, who is rather critical of I'm just a bit critical of gendered violence, of sexual assault, sexual violence. I'm pretty critical of that. Why haven't I spoken on it? Well, they're already hostages. Like, they're hostages. It's a terror organization. Am I supposed to be uniquely shocked by any of that? Like, seriously, like, am I supposed to come out here and go, like, can you believe this terror organization is doing, like, awful, horrendous, like, deplorable things? Yeah. Like, no shit. It's not really, like, it's not a novel concept. It's not a novel, like, we know what terror organizations do. We know what they do. None of this is, like, and not only that, but there's no amount of me saying that what Hamas is doing is bad on Twitter or any other platform, on this, anything. There's no amount of anything that I can say that's going to fundamentally change what is happening over there. It's just not. You're not, like, nothing I say will make Hamas go, Josh is right. We really shouldn't do that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. What I do have an ability to do is speak about U.S. policy and the U.S.'s position in this conflict, which can then impact the ability of Israel to take actions, those being the bombings of civilians. So, like, one, I have no ability to influence, and the other, I have a slim ability. I'm sorry, but I'm going to spend my time trying to turn that slim ability into as large of an ability to influence the administration as possible. It's just, at the end of the day, Hamas isn't a nation state. They don't have allies. They're not allied with the United States, the place in which I execute my freedom of speech and where I execute my freedom to vote. So it's just like, what the fuck do they care? What the hell does Hamas care about what I think about what they're doing? But the American government, on the other hand, almost certainly does. And as a voter, Democratic candidates certainly do. So, and through I have the ability to spread rhetoric. Hopefully, at some point, at some point you hope, as somebody who streams politics, who talks politics on a weekly basis, you hope that you can change some minds, activate some people, and wielding that can be dangerous for some politicians. That's kind of the goal here. There's nothing I can do. For Hamas, they're like, fuck, I care about some streamers say. But, people care say what you want. People care. Politicians need to care what somebody like Hassan Abi says, because he can sway voters. He has influence. Like, that nobody on Twitch has influence over Hamas
right now to these hostages. Why is that?
I mean, I don't know that that's true. I think we always talk about the impact of war on women in particular. In fact, I remember 20 years ago, I did a petition around the war in Iraq.
Have you talked about it since October 7th?
And I've condemned what Hamas has done. I've condemned all of the actions. Absolutely. The rape, of course. But I think we have to remember that Israel is a democracy. That is why they are a strong ally of ours. And if they do not comply with international humanitarian law, they are bringing themselves to a place that makes it much more difficult strategically for them to be able to build the kinds of allies, to keep public opinion with them. And frankly, morally, I think we cannot say that one war crime deserves another. That is not what international humanitarian law says.
Okay, with respect, I was just asking about the women, and you turned it back to Israel. I'm asking you about Hamas. In fact,
I already answered your question, Dana. I said it's horrific, and I think that rape is horrific, sexual assault is horrific. I think that it happens in war situations. Terrorist organizations like Hamas obviously are using these as tools. However, I think we have to be balanced about bringing in the outrages against Palestinians. 15,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes, 3/4 of whom are women and children.
And it's horrible, but you don't see Israeli soldiers raping.
Well, Dana, I think we're not.
Wait. But that's not the wait. But that's not the metric of how we wait. That's not the metric on how we determine who is a moral actor in a war. You pick a random metric? Like, think about it. What she is saying is, look. 15,000 people, 15,000 souls are no longer on this realm of existence. But Hamas apparently raped, 100 women? Bad, certainly, absolutely. Both of those things are bad. But the idea that, come on, 15,000 people are dead and there's this other bad thing is happening that the other group is doing. It's like, we have 15,000 dead people, kids. I'm sorry, but at some point we need to reckon with the idea that maybe we should call for a seat. Maybe everyone should put everything down and we all take a fucking chill pill. And maybe the reason why those women are are in pain and are suffering from those acts, that might have something to do with the fact that the government that represents them was oppressing people for 75 years. And now they're paying the price for their government, which, by the way, I don't believe in, but Hamas and the IDF certainly do. So,
I don't want this to be the hierarchy of oppressions. I think 15,000 people have been killed.
It shouldn't be,
Palestinians.
which is horrible.
2.2
It shouldn't be,
million
yet that's
Palestinians live
what
in
she's arguing.
140 square mile area, which is about the size of Las Vegas, with a population that is 4 times that of Las Vegas, and 1.8 million Palestinians right now are displaced. They are living in shelters. They are being told to move to South Gaza, then South Gaza is being bombed. They're being told to move to North Gaza. There are no homes left. The vast majority of infrastructure has been destroyed. This is not the way that we are going to beat terrorism, whether it's Hamas.
Don't be surprised U.S. popularity at rock bottom in the world, China popularity up.
Means domestically for President Biden. You've warned that the way.
I mean, admittedly, that's one of those things. Like, whenever people say like the U.S. is really unpopular worldwide, I'm like, well, yeah, we're like a global superpower. That I don't really know how you like gauge global popularity necessarily, but like, yeah, when you're on top, you like, yeah, that's kind of make quite a lot of enemies when you're up at the top. China has been growing, which, you know, I mean, certainly good thing in some aspects and a bad thing in others, the way that they've grown, but yeah.
At the Biden administration, the president himself is handling this war, jeopardizes his support among progressives and Muslim American voters, and that they could actually stay home. Do you think that that is, how big of a threat, political threat is that to President Biden, in particular when it's possible, at this point probable, that Donald Trump would be his opponent, and he's not exactly warm when it comes to Muslims?
Yeah, that's an understatement. Look, I am a supporter of President Biden. I have been out there for the president, and I will continue to be, even though I think that the way that this, the handling of this war started was unfortunately such that it has alienated huge communities. We have to be realistic about that, and we have to do work right now to address that, not just with outreach here, but actually looking at the situation in the Middle East and recognizing that Palestinians deserve the same respect, innocent Palestinians deserve the same respect as innocent Israelis. And we've got to talk about that. We've got to get to that long-term solution. And at the end of the day, the United States has its reputation to think about globally. And if we alienate all of our allies in the Middle East, that is not going to help us ensure that President Biden wins domestically at home.
Before I let you go, I have to ask you about immigration.
Yes.
You just heard Lindsey Graham saying that he's not going to.
Anyway, all right. But yeah, so listening to that, understand, like, so let's keep in mind, Pramila Jayapal, not my favorite, caucus leader in the Democratic Party. She lacks in a few really key places, but every once in a while she comes out there and I think she does a really good job of articulating her point and everything else. And I think she did a really good job here in like trying to really drive home the point that like we keep trying to draw this equivalence of the actions of Hamas and Israel when there just isn't, right? And let's go take a look at let's take a break from videos really quick and read this article from Ryan Grimm over at The Intercept. So the reason why I bring this up is I mentioned modern Zionism, right? And a way that we see a lot of that play out is this emphasis on the on the negative actions from Hamas and framing the what's the word I'm looking for? The conflict in Gaza around what Hamas does and putting a lot of, I think, the responsibility for everything that's happening over there onto Hamas. Let's take a look at domestically, also another way in how they exert their power. And I mentioned this a little bit in the a little bit earlier on why the Democratic Party you see such, I think, a fealty to Zionist talking points and like pro-Israel sentiment. So let's go take a look. In the days after her victory, she was consistently a presence. Let's zoom in a little bit. Presence on national TV, creating viral moments that sent her star rising further with each one. On Twitter, her clapbacks were feasted on by a rapidly growing social media following. Her direct-to-camera Instagram dispatches were bringing a rawness to politics that young people were craving. Quote, she was just hitting homer after homer and kept doing these interviews and just blowing it out of the park. Sakat Chakrabarti, who helped run her campaign and would go on to become her chief of staff, told told me, quote, and every time she would do one, we'd get bigger and bigger people asking her to come on. And then at some point, all the late night shows were asking to have her. But then they have this weird competition thing where you can't be on one and then also the other. They get really mad about that. Still, the toll of her popularity was about to hit its limits. Quote, a mistake we made early is we did not do enough to just figure out how to keep AOC from not getting exhausted. I mean, it's incredible she didn't have a nervous breakdown. In the middle of July, the stress finally caught up with Ocasio-Cortez, and she did the unthinkable. She took on the Israel-Palestine question unprepared. Corbin Trent, her communications director, and I put her in a bit of a vulnerable position on a topic that wasn't her thing. She never really talked about Israel-Palestine, and that's just not something she'd really thought a lot about, other than a little bit during the campaign. Ocasio-Cortez was still surging in celebrity when she agreed to a sit-down interview on PBS's Firing Line. In the midst of the primary campaign, she had attracted attention with her full-throated criticism of the Israel Defense Force, which had fired on Palestinian demonstrators in Gaza, killing many. Her criticisms had been a commentary on the politics of the region. She said when pressed about it during the interview, but merely a defense of the right to protest without being killed. This is a massacre, she said. She had posted on Twitter in May of 2018 as Israeli forces continue to kill protesters in Gaza, with the numbers of dead climbing north of 200. Quote, I hope my peers have the moral courage to call it as such. No state or entity is absolved of mass shootings of protesters. There is no justification. Palestinian people deserve basic human dignity as anyone else. Democrats can't be silent about this anymore. But among Puerto Rican families, the issue doesn't come up all that often, outside of those who are heavily engaged in geopolitics. And if it does, there's a reflexive solidarity with Palestinians. Quote, Puerto Rico is a colony that is granted no rights, that has no civic representation, AOC told Glenn Greenwald in an interview during the primary campaign. Quote, if 60 of us were shot in protest of the U.S. Negligence in FEMA, I couldn't imagine if there were silence on that. Her Firing Line interviewer, Margaret Hoover, brought up AOC's use of the term massacre and asked a broad question. What is your position on Israel? Quote, well, I believe absolutely in Israel's right to exist. Ocasio began adding as she supported a two-state solution. She then said that she was merely looking at the killings through her lens as an activist. If 60 people were killed in Ferguson, Missouri, if 60 people were killed in South Bronx, unarmed, if 60 people were killed in Puerto Rico, I just look at that incident more through just an incident, and as an incident, it would be completely unacceptable if it happened on our shores. Ocasio-Cortez is equating the lives and dignity of Palestinians with others around the world. Crazy thought. Was treading unusual terrain for a New York politician. Of course, Hoover cut in. The dynamic there in terms of geopolitics and the war in the Middle East is very different than people expressing their First Amendment right to protest. AOC paused and took a deep breath. The First Amendment might not legally cover unarmed Palestinian protesters, but it certainly did from a moral perspective. She stood her ground. Quote, well, yes, but I think that people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is just an increasing crisis of humanitarian condition. And that to me is where is where I tend to come from on this issue, she said, responded now visibly nervous. Quote, you used the term the occupation of Palestine, Hoover pressed, leaning forward. What did you mean by that? From one representative, it could mean the entire state of Israel was an illegitimate occupation of the nation that is truly Palestine, though this was ruled out by AOC's initial assertion of her support for the right to Israel to exist. From another perspective, it could merely refer to the ongoing occupation of Palestinian territory, an occupation recognized as illegal by international law, but Ocasio-Cortez wanted none of the discussion. Quote, oh, I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulties in access to their housing and homes, she said. She said, clearly suggesting she was referring to the latter definition. Hoover wanted more. Do you think you can expand on that? But Ocasio-Cortez tapped out. I'm not an expert on the geopolitics on the issue. I just look at things through a human rights lens, and I may not use the right words. I know this is a very intense issue. I come from the South Bronx. I come from Puerto Rico, from a Puerto Rican background. The Middle Eastern politics was not exactly my kitchen table every night. But I also recognize this is an intensely important issue. Her team decided to take a break from national interviews. To me, the scary thing was being about the whole Israeli-Palestinian thing wasn't that she got an answer wrong. That was the first time she had a bit of confidence, a bit of a confidence hit, because she didn't do incredible in an interview. Up until that moment, she was doing incredible at every interview, and that's the scary thing for someone like her. After the Feinstein interview, she was slammed from all directions, from the left for being too soft on the occupation, from the right for, quote, attacking Israel, and from all sides for the cardinal sin of admitting to not knowing about something. But Ocasio-Cortez had not run for Congress to become a voice on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. At the time, she betrayed a visceral sense of just how treacherous the issue could be for her. But she could never have guessed how significantly she had underestimated it. About a week later, she was in Kansas City with Bernie Sanders for a rally on behalf of labor attorney Brent Welder, with the duo hoping to make the case that even in Kansas, Bernie and AOC-style populism can flip a swing district. While there, she also got a lesson into how things typically work in national politics. Corbin Trent, who her communications director, got a call from a man saying he represented donors to the organization AIPAC, or the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. They told him there was $100,000 ready to be handed over to Ocasio-Cortez to, quote, start the conversation with the organization with much more than that to come. Chakrabarty and AOC both told me they were shocked at the offer. The campaign was flush with cash, and it was rejected out of hand. Quote, I was expecting the corruption to be much more subtle, Trent told me. This was basically a bag filled with cash. So we kind of took a look a little bit at Jayapal's response and the kind of framing that we see in the media. This is also happening behind the scenes. We are seeing, like we have to understand that, like, the AIPAC and the other Zionist organizations that function, especially on the Democratic side, this is a lot of how they operate, offering large sums to begin conversations with representatives so that they can give them talking points and give them, kind of their perspective on things. And keep in mind, if you accept a lot of that money, whether you side with them or not, it becomes a political liability. They can now say, hey, we sent you all of this money. Are you a bot? Can you as a politician be bought? Can your time be bought? Which, I mean, let's be honest here. The obvious answer for most representatives is yes. But, if you're if you're AOC, if you're Bernie Sanders, if you're somebody like that who is running a populist-centric campaign, you do not want to be seen taking large donations like this just to kind of speak with people. This is a pretty big, it's pretty, I'm not going to say smart, but like they were at least smart enough to not engage with this and just back away from that entire conversation, because that would look quite bad. But, you kind of got to ask yourself, how many other representatives have gotten this offer of basically like, hey, like, we're willing to offer you basically an unbeatable amount of money in terms of winning re-election every single year. If you can keep your seat, keep doing all of the 10, keep doing all of the 100 good things you're doing. We just need you on this one position. Can you make the trade of 100 to 1? And it's all about how much that one position really means to you. That being said, I really wanted to get to this part. Actually, how much more do we have? Let's see. Daniel Moran's confirmed my reporting with Chakrabarty and Trent, who offered this reflection. Quote, the implication was that her positions could be repaired with conversations, that her positions were based on a lack of information and lack of proximity to enough of a variety of people. By the way, the variety is just Zionists. Trent recalled AIPAC denied the offer to HuffPost, but Marin's offered an interesting and I think correct interpretation. Before AIPAC started a real political action committee for the 2022 elections, it's feasible that affiliated mega donor or major bundler that an affiliated megadonor or major bundler could have gone to AOC with a policy paper and an offer and never told AIPAC itself. Flush with cash and facing no serious general election opponent, the offer wasn't seriously considered. So, like, this is kind of how these groups operate in a lot of ways. They operate through, like, just sending cash to representatives so they can kind of have conversations and elucidate them to certain kinds of framings and whatnot and everything else. So, you get the talking points to get yourself out of hot water with voters and you get a ton of money. Like, there's a lot of upsides. But let's go take a look at, that being said, let's go take a look at somebody who I think never needed the cash to be on the side of Israel in this case, to which we see Debbie Wasserman Schultz showed up on CNN as well. When was this posted? Let me look. This is 2 days ago on CNN. So
is back, and so is the nightmare for innocent civilians.
And this is another way, and this is kind of like, I think, the execution of that media savviness, I suppose.
Remember, cell service and electricity are sparse there. National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby was asked on Friday about the number of civilians who have already died since bombing resumed in Gaza, and he would not say if the Biden administration has seen more deliberate targeting from Israel. Secretary of State Antony Blinken had said that he wanted to see Israeli plans to protect civilians before fighting resumed. This is his latest comment.
I have seen that information start to get out. I saw the plans that Israel has in a multiplicity of ways to do everything possible to protect civilians, including making sure that they have the information they need and that there are ways to accommodate them. And this is going to be very important going forward, and it's something we're going to be looking at very closely.
All right, now the U.S. is watching, but is there anything more that the U.S. could be doing? One option is adding conditions to any aid that the U.S. provides to Israel. Some Democratic senators support it. House Republicans do not. Now, plenty of House Democrats oppose it, too, including Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida. She is on the House Appropriations Committee, and she joins me now. It's been a while since we have talked, so it's good to have you on the show, Congresswoman.
Congratulations on your new show.
Thank you very much.
I want to join you.
Thank you. So let's start with why you oppose putting some conditions on the multi-billion-dollar package that Israel will most certainly get.
Well, Victor, I think it's important that we understand here that this is not a situation where we don't have the ability to communicate with Israel. They are a close ally, among our closest. Our intelligence and military leadership are sitting together with Israel side by side every day. That communication is ongoing at the highest levels, all the way up to President Biden. And we are working with them to make sure, as they are already prioritizing minimizing civilian casualties. It's Hamas that is
minimizing civilian casualties. 15,000 dead civilians. And that's what minimizing casualties sound like. And this is like Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not somebody without power, for whom power evades them in the Democratic Party. So like, this is somebody who has a ton of power in terms of fundraising, in terms of like actual like whip voting and stuff. Like, this is not, but this is how they spin this is, the IDF is doing the best that it can to minimize civilian casualties, and because Hamas is using Palestinians as human shields, they had no choice but to bomb the entire building and kill everybody, hostages and all.
Putting civilians in harm's way embedding themselves and their headquarters underneath hospitals and
By the way, again,
facilities.
we still haven't gotten confirmation of this.
That's where the accountability should lie, and making sure that Israel can bring their
If only we could hold
Hamas
accountable.
them, and make sure that they can eradicate the terrorist threat is what the priority is. Conditioning aid is not something you do in an emergency situation with an ally.
And what is the emergency situation? We have an emergency situation right now in Ukraine where an ally of ours is facing a ground invasion by another sovereign nation. That I think is that is an emergency. I think that is absolutely what we would call an emergency situation. Now, what is the emergency situation in Israel in terms of their danger? They have an Iron Dome. They have seen how many civilian deaths in Israel since October 7th? Like, how much, like, how even is this? And, like, I think it becomes evident that we don't really report very much on Hamas's actions, do we? You don't really hear a lot of reporting about, oh, how many people, you know, how many, like, what else has Hamas done since October 7th? There's just not as much reporting on it because Israel has all of the ability, all of the resources to defend itself and to ward off these what am I saying? To defend itself. Yeah. Like, so what's the, where's the emergency here? What is the emergency? The emergency is we need to flatten Gaza faster.
So you are right that the civilians in Gaza would not be in this position. The estimated more than 14,000 who have been killed since October 7th would not be dead if not for the October 7th attack. But if the point that you're making is that the U.S. has been sitting side by side with Israel since the start of this, well, since October 7th, I understand that. But since the start of this, there have been those 14,000 plus killed. There have been, according to UNICEF, 5,300 children killed. So if it did not influence their decision of targeting before the truce, why are you confident that there will be anything different now as they move into the south?
Victor, Israel, first of all, Israel is held to a much, much higher standard when at war than any other country on earth. And they have specifically, nearly exclusively in a wartime, made sure to notify and communicate in advance with civilians, particularly in this very urbanized environment, that they should get out of harm's way. Hamas, the terrorist organization that puts them in harm's way, prevents them from getting to safety. And this is a very dense urbanized area in which Hamas has not actually spent the funds that they have to protect their civilians. They have said publicly in interviews that they spend their money on their tunnel system so they can protect themselves. Yeah. So Hamas is to blame for the harm that is coming to their civilians.
But go where? When you say that the IDF is warning the civilians to get out of the way, and I should say that the leaflets have been dropped over the cities in southern Gaza that they are focusing on now, but they're using QR codes. We have reported that how unreliable cell phone service is, the electricity, the internet as well. So I don't know what a QR code does to anybody who doesn't have cell phone service and doesn't have access to the internet. But if the IDF has told them to move south, where are they supposed to go now?
What should happen here is that Hamas should release the hostages. They should cease their attacks, a ceasefire that they yet again broke, just yesterday, even before it was determined that the truce was not going to continue. This is on Hamas. That's where this conflict was started. They have killed 1,400 civilians in an unprecedented attack in Israel. They took 240 women, children, and elderly people hostage, most of whom they are still holding on to. Victor, I wish you were asking me questions about how Hamas is being held to account. That is where Gaza needs to be freed from Hamas. And we already have the ability, thanks to President Biden. We are already communicating. We've gotten dozens and dozens, actually hundreds of aid trucks into Gaza. And Hamas skims off the top to make sure that they can refortify and be able to be strong.
Yeah, so what's the solution? We just don't send any aid trucks then? Is that the solution? Just like, oh, well, we just can't, maybe what if we just like don't send anything in? Like, not only that, but we've seen, like, if I remember correctly, last stream, we, like, read an article of, like, a guy driving an ambulance getting, like, sniped by a fucking IDF sniper. Like, we've seen Israel take action against these aid workers. Like, it's just, at the end of the day, they could just open up all of it, and Israel could take a break, go home, eat lunch, do something else, and aid would get to these people. And Hamas wouldn't stop it. Hamas has no interest in stopping aid to the people of Gaza. What do they have to gain from that? Nothing. So it's just ridiculous.
Those trucks are getting in. Those trucks are getting in after a nearly month-long blockade on food and fuel and water, and the fuel obviously.
Like, keep in mind her fucking monstrous argument is that, like, Israel turned off literally water, electricity, gas, access to food, everything. They literally are starving this population out, but we can't call for a ceasefire so that all of those resources can go back. Israel, again, it's why I really hesitate to ever call this a war, because it's not a war. This is a slaughter of people. And at the end of the day, their argument seems to be, or at least their the way that they're like thinking about this, it seems, supporters of Israel and such, is that like, well, we can't give the people of Gaza too many resources because it might end up we can't send food to the region because a Hamas fighter might eat something. That is what they're worried about. That is how they're framing this in their mind, I think. And it's the same reason why they see Palestinian human shields and they go, I kind of want to kill the Hamas guy behind them, though. So if I got to go through the civilians, I guess I'm going through the civilians. And it's just monstrous. It's just monstrous. It's so dehumanizing. It's just, they rationalize so much of the disregard for human life just because they can point to one Hamas member. If they can starve one Hamas member, to them it feels like to them it's worth starving thousands of people. But either way, okay, so my voice is starting to strain a little bit, and I want some water. So we're gonna take a break, and then we'll come back and do some video, shall we? Sound good? Yeah. Cool. I'll be back. Where are we going? There it is. right, we are back. Sorry, I forgot to grab water before we got started. And what's it called? Like I said, my voice was starting to go a little bit. You can really start to feel it, you know? Anyway, all right, so I have 3 videos. Actually, should we do? No, I do want to do this. Okay, so who is this guy? I feel like I've heard this guy's name before. So have I? Wait, British author. Is this guy notable? Am I crazy? Moral sense than leadership. Oh, okay, this guy's like an idiot. Okay. Okay, so the right wing, especially online, constantly, I think, so you've probably heard me and others say it, right? Where the right online uses the term woke, and a lot of other like insider terms for them, that really I've never been able, and I don't know anybody else who's ever been able, to get a strong definition on. With that being said, this video stands to answer what woke is in 3 minutes. It's by, apparently this is Douglas Murray. I don't know who they are. I don't really care all that much, but they've got an answer to me as to what woke is. So I want to look at that and kind of respond to it, I guess. And then after that, I want to take a look at a video from this channel called Spiked, which I just really stumbled upon recently, about the Islamo left. Again, every once in a while I try to find these videos where somebody interprets or does a explainer for some left-wing thing. Most of the time I'm left feeling like they definitely only read about half or picked their sources very carefully. And then we'll take a look at Tim Pool, because you know me, I love talking about Tim Pool. It's just a fun thing it's just a guy that I'm always interested to talk about. You know, he's really got his pulse on the, I don't know, youth. Maybe. I don't know what his demographics are. Anyway, let's start with the video that I said we're going to start with. The woke. What is woke? Apparently we have an answer. So let's get into it, shall we?
That they believe, for instance, that being a woman should be merely the first step in a wider mission to bring down capitalism. Now,
wait, what?
I don't think most women are on board with that.
I'm sorry. I didn't. Okay. So, based. Okay. Oof. Wow, that was a lot. That was a lot up front. Okay, so that sounded idiotic. So, let me get this straight. The trans movement is about anti-capitalism? No. Okay, cool. Hey.
They believe, for instance, that being a woman should be merely the first step in a wider mission to bring down capitalism. Now, I don't think most women are on board with that.
Because women are antithetical to capitalism? I'm confused.
And most women would be rather surprised to be utilized in this fashion. But that is very clearly and explicitly, and I quote the various scholars and writers who've been pushing this for years, this is explicitly the aim. It's a basis for
Who are the scholars and writers? What's funny to me is, like, people will look to, like, scholars and writers, and I can't help but be like, you know, if you want to find out what the left's opinions are, there are quite a few very, like, accessible resources that you can go to. There, you know, there's this channel, there's there's YouTube. Like, you can find out where the pulse of leftist ideology is. I don't think it's we need people to be women so capitalism falls. I think it's just, I don't even really think there's really a we need people to be women thing. It's just a freedom of identity thing, and also, like, we're anti-capitalists. They're like, or at least some of us are. So it's just those are two topics, but okay.
When people say the gay community, who are you talking about?
The gay,
like, women think this. Oh, really? 50% of the species all agree on something.
Wait, Is he arguing that you can't make demographic generalizations based on, I mean, you can say, like, again, a lot of people say X group does thing, or X group think this, or X group votes this way, whatever. And it's not to say that any of those are representative or a monolith, but yeah, if you've got polling data, if you've got like survey statistical data to say, yeah, we talked to 100,000 women and this is what they had to say. You can say women as like a demographic category generally are coming to this conclusion. That doesn't mean that all women do, or it's just like data analysis. Is this an argument that you can never find out what any group thinks through any kind of scientific study? Is okay?
Blacks say this. Really? Now,
well, also you'd have to define me what a black is, by the way. Is that a black African, an African American? What shade of black counts as black? Like, are we including, light-skinned folks? Like, where exactly is the line where black starts and non-black begins? You know what I mean? It's like,
this is, let me put it another way. If somebody said, I know, I just love the working class.
Right. Uh-huh.
Who?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, why don't you ask, what do you mean by that? Most people would say, oh, I'm generally talking about the people living in in our society at the very least, people who live for trading their labor for commerce, basically. Essentially, the working class is most people who are working to earn a living. The difference between someone like a capital owner and or as we'd say the owner and the the employer and the employee is that the employer does not trade their labor for commerce, for capital, for money. The employer owns things. People produce things using the equipment that they own, and they take a percentage, usually too large of a percentage, by the way. But usually they live and they earn off of the reallocation of their own resources. That's how they continue to make money. You take $5 and turn it into 10. You take $10, turn it into 20. You take 20, turn it into 40. You take 40, you take it, turn that into 100. Like that's how it works. You just keep recycling your resources until you're rich, basically. Whereas, if you're a worker, if you're in the working class, you own nothing. What you do is you go and trade your labor, you go and trade your time, you go and trade your blood, sweat, and effort and energy for a wage. Most of the time, that'd be a wage earner. So, yeah, the working class are those that work, as opposed to those that earn. I don't really think that's that hard to conceptualize, but okay.
I just love the middle class. Who? I love the upper class. Who?
Well, the middle class is kind of relative, right? Like the middle class in one country is going to be starkly different from a middle class in another. The middle class in like America is essentially the upper class in a lot of third world countries. So the middle class is rather relative. Same with the upper class. Okay.
Who are you talking about? And it's the same with this. Why would we be falling for this interpretation of society as depending solely or primarily on interest groups based on gender/sex, sexual orientation?
Wait, but you just But you just named class distinctions, like socioeconomic classes. What?
On interest groups based on gender solely or primarily on interest groups as depending. Why would we be falling for this interpretation of society as depending solely or primarily on interest groups based on gender/sex, sexual orientation, race, and a bit more? Why?
Organization and categorization. We organize society based on traits that we can easily identify. Like, yeah, and that's how we figure out common interests among large swaths of people. Is this person stupid? No, seriously, does this person have absolutely... I Googled them really quickly. They're an author. Has this person never, once thought about how societies function? How? What do you mean primarily or around? Yeah, we have societies made up of millions of people for us to decide or figure out how to, appeal, how to appeal when we are running those societies to large groups of them. You usually want to find commonalities, common experiences. Some of those being race, people of similar racial backgrounds tend to share overlapping, life experiences due to their relation to the rest of the world. Same with gender. Ask most women. Most women have, while not the exact same experiences, most women have a pretty there's a swatch of if you're a woman, you've probably experienced this list of things happening. If you're a man, you've probably experienced this list of things happening, because those experiences are based on your position in society, and those in a similar position are going to have similar experiences. Yeah, sexual orientation, yeah, because who you desire to fuck has kind of had a big role to play in how you are treated and how you are approached in society. Not until 2013, I think, if you were gay, you didn't have an equal right to marriage as people who weren't gay. That's kind of a shared experience that all gays can kind of relate to, right? This is kind of how you figure out how to relate to people. This seems rather I'm saying this like it's obvious, because it kind of is. But this dude is making it out to be why would we look at society like this? Why are these the categories that we that base and frame our world around? It's not. First of all, the actual categories are rather different. If you go to somewhere, say Japan, the politics are very different. The class politics are very different. The racial and ethnic politics are very different. If you're that would have, you'd have to have some kind of understanding of the world, I guess, to get that.
Why would we be doing that? Why would we be taking the individualism out of individuals and lumping them in these demonstrably incoherent bodies that don't even exist?
Why do we broadly categorize people? Because that's how because that's how you come to broad consensus.
They don't even exist. The LGBT community. Take me to your leader. Come on. But it's why, as I say, you can...
Well, but yeah, that's because the LGBT community is a broad and decentralized label for those yeah, the LGBT community is just you're kind of referring to generally non-straight, non-cis, non-heterosexual people. That's kind of, yeah, that's pretty much all you're referring to. Usually, by the way, they're more left-leaning if you're talking LGBT community. If we're talking the LGBT community, we're not talking about gay conservatives. Usually they don't identify with that group because they identify more with their conservatism than they do with the shared experience of gay Americans in in the US, or around the world, I suppose. But that's kind of a choice of which category you want to identify more with. That doesn't really, but these also aren't hard categories, right? You can go in and out of any of these at your will, because I don't know if he knows this, but you're not bound to them. Again, we just categorize people so that we can get a broad sense in terms of million plus people politics. You wouldn't ever be able to like know what generally people are thinking. Like, also, the name of this video is what woke is. What does this have to do with woke? Woke doesn't mean anything. Can you get, like, if you right-wingers want to do this, like, woke agenda, please, by all means, you apparently are aware of it. Take me to the leader of the woke movement, by all means. And you know what's going to happen? Every single one of these right-wing commentators, every single one of these guys are going to give you a different leader for the woke movement, because like their obsession with this as a movement, as broad and unspecific as it is all it really is. That's all it really is. It's an obsession. It's just a vague punching bag that they can punch towards, and their audience will go like, yep, that represents anything that I dislike. Like,
always predict exactly who is going to latch onto the latest claim. When, for instance, the big bearded man with male genitalia wins the women's weightlifting competition, you can predict with 100% accuracy who is going to say, yeah, what's the problem with that? And the people who are...
Wait, what? Wait, but aren't you... Wait. Aren't you now categorizing people and making a broad generalization? There are people within the LGBT community who... do have a oppositional view to trans people. There is like the Gays Against Groomers types organization, but that's not because like, that's really only because they're using their identity as a gay individual to kind of distract from their own oppression, I suppose. It's like, you want to be one of the good gays. It's like one of those things. But again, like, all right, like, why do you have, like, what about you that you have a problem with that? Like, all right, they have, like, sure, you say they have male genitalia, you say that they have a beard. Like, again, this always comes down to, do you notice how he's really just making like a rash caricature of like what a trans athlete looks like? You know what I mean? Like, because it's all just, it's all South Park. That is how deep these people think about it.
We're going to say, I'm not sure Clive, the big weightlifter, should be winning the women's category. You can predict it. And
are they named
who say,
Clive?
Why have you got a problem?
He does know that names aren't real, right? Like a name isn't real. It's just an identifier. It's not real. You're not born with a name.
With that bigot.
It's not in your DNA. There is no Josh DNA.
In the past, that our societies needed to be pulled apart in another fashion. And now they'd like to do it in this fashion. It has this hideous red interior, which keeps...
My God, this is like incoherent. Also just dumb in general.
Keeps exposing itself as desiring...
It really has got to be... It's got to be really easy to be British sometimes, I swear.
Ourselves and our environment,
like,
but for instance,
with this accent, you can say the dumbest shit and sound smart because we associate British accents with intelligence.
Relies on us pretending we know about things that we don't know about. And simultaneously demands that we pretend...
Well, we have doctors, we have psychologists. You could speak to one and they could probably give you a pretty simple explanation. Like, you could do some kind of okay. Well, that felt like a real waste of time. More than usual. Wow. Never in my, like, I'm actually kind of shocked. That was more, that was it, like, and that has 997,000 views in 2 months. Right. Wow. That has almost 1 million views, and there was like nothing there. Just, why do we pick this category that I don't think we should pick? Well, because it elucidates more reality to us. There are trans people, therefore we should probably categorize people, or at the very least a category, like the option to categorize people should be like being trans. I don't really think doesn't really seem all that that hard to understand, to be honest. It kind of seems self-evident as new types of people emerge in our society, gain more rights, gain more notoriety, we should probably make room for those people to exist within our political spaces. Yeah, I don't know. It's just, wow. It's just, wow. Good God. Anyway, okay. So that was a widely viewed video, apparently. That was really stupid. Let's go take a look at this spiked video. I've not heard of this channel, but it seems like, how long has this channel even been around? It seems like 87.4 thousand subscribers on YouTube. Let's take a look. I'm now like really curious. When did this start? 841 videos. It started in 2014. Wow. Can I look up? Let's take a look here. So Blade. All right, what is it? Spiked. Okay. Let's take a look. This one. Let's see. 14 million views. British. Okay, as usual. 87,000 subscribers. All right, let's take a look. 12 subscribers, total video views weekly. All right, here we go. That's what I kind of want. Doesn't really seem. Oh wait, here we go. Monthly gain video views since January of 2021. Doesn't interesting. Wow, real fucking drop off in January of 2023. Interesting. Fascinating. Okay. Estimated monthly earnings. Wow, 100. Wow. Interesting. Either way, oh yeah, gender critical witch hunt. Ooh boy, whatever. Anyway, let's go take a look and see. I guess a smaller, a smaller channel. Usually we watch like Daily Wire, but let's check on a smaller channel. This one is the depravity of the Islamo left. I can only guess where this is gonna go. So,
Hamas a terrorist group? Most people wouldn't struggle with that question. After all, this brutal Islamist organization, which rules over Gaza with an iron fist, just butchered 1,200 people on the 7th.
Wait. Okay. You, sir. Okay. Everything he just said was true, right? Everything he just said was true. So let me ask you something. If Hamas rules Gaza with an iron fist, what does that mean Israel is doing, occupying and controlling the water and energy resources into Gaza, A, and B, what does it say about Hamas, what does it say about Israel, who has flattened Gaza and killed 15,000 civilians in the city? I agree. Hamas is a horrible jihadist, what's the word I'm looking for? Jihadist terrorist organization, but 15,000 dead at the hands of Israel bombing? That's like worse, right?
For October. The youngest victims were infants. The oldest were Holocaust survivors.
Ah, yes.
Women were raped. Hostages were taken.
Ah, yes. And in Gaza, 15,000 women and children have been slaughtered. What is that? What did they say? 75. What's that number? Hit me with that number. What was that number? 15,000. So 11,250 women and children have been killed in Gaza due to Israel bombings. Just saying.
When former UK Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn was asked this question on Talk TV a few weeks back, he couldn't bring himself to utter the T word.
Can we have a discussion?
Can you call them a terror group? Jeremy?
Can we have a discussion?
Can you call them a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion?
Are you prepared
Am I crazy? Did he say yes?
Yourself to utter the T word.
Can we have a discussion?
Can you call them a terror group? Can you call them a terror group?
Is it possible to have a rational discussion?
Are you prepared to call Hamas a terror?
Do you notice this is how like and I'm not even gonna say Pierce Morgan isn't a Zionist. He's just right wing. But do you notice how like they can't let the opposition engage? Like they won't do it. They'll be like, you have to call it a terrorist organization. You have to subscribe to this framing. You have to do this. You have to do this. There are so many hoops you have to jump through before they are willing to have a conversation with you, because without the like really slanted framing of pro-Israeli talking heads, like without them blustering on like this, they are like immediately devastated by the like really obvious and illegal occupation that's been going on over there. Like it's just like they have to like do does Israel have a right to defend itself? Well, it depends on what you mean. Does Israel have a right to defend itself? Well, if you'd let me finish answering, does Israel like and like that's how they have to engage, because any like reasonable conversation or opposition is pretty dangerous to the pro-Israel like commentators, because it's really evident when you look at it for more than a second and you like not let somebody yell at you to like concede on one random ass point. It's really obvious that like, oh, Israel has all the power in this relationship and they've only created a worse and worse conditions for the people in Gaza, which has led to them siding with Hamas, a terrorist organization, because they see no political outcome that could be beneficial to them. Like, yeah, and when you lay it all out like that, you're like, oh shit, like maybe Israel's been making the wrong decision for 75 years and now we're in a position where terrorism feels like the only option for the people that they've been keeping their boot on. That kind of seems reasonable, doesn't it? But they can't let you get to that point, because if you do, halfway through, like not even halfway, 2 words into that answer, if I was on that show, I would just be getting yelled at. Is Hamas a terrorist organization? Are they a terrorist organization? Like, they just can't engage. They can't engage reasonably on this topic.
Is it possible to have a rational discussion with you? Is it possible?
Yep, Come
on,
it is.
Answer that
there
question.
it is.
You answer it. No.
Yep.
Host
there
Piers
it is.
Morgan invited Corbyn to describe Hamas as
it always just
terrorists
ends in yelling.
15 times.
Because it's the only thing. Because it's the only argument they have.
Instead, Corbyn just whittled on about needing to start a process that leads to a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. He's since found the minerals to call Hamas a terrorist group in an article for Tribune.
Also, let's just point out here, very good mic, very good boom arm. Obviously a pretty good setup here. Editors and whatnot. I'm smelling some right-wing money on this for this small little right-wing YouTube outlet here. Maybe we'll have to respond to more of these in the future.
Tribune. But that would perhaps be more reassuring if it wasn't for his long history of closing up to Hamas and other Islamist terror groups. In 2009, addressing a public meeting, Corbyn infamously referred to Hamas and Lebanese Islamist Hezbollah as, quote, friends, unquote. He went further, railing against the designation of Hamas as a terrorist group.
And the idea that an organization that is dedicated towards the good of the Palestinian people and bringing about long-term peace and social justice and political justice in the whole region should be labelled as a terrorist organisation by the British government is really a big, big historical mistake. And I would invite the government to reconsider its position on this matter and start talking directly to Hamas and Hezbollah. That is the only way forward to bring about peace.
And that's not all.
Also, yeah, I wouldn't call terror organizations, like, maybe this is where I differ. Like, I don't really believe that Hamas has the best interest of the Palestinians at hand. The same way I don't believe that the IDF has the best interest of Israeli citizens in its mind. I think both of these groups use their civilian populations as justification for engaging in like brutal warfare. That's my general read on it.
2011, Corbyn invited Raed Salah, an alleged Hamas fundraiser who believes the Jews were behind 9/11, to tea in Westminster. During a visit to Tunisia in 2014, Corbyn was filmed laying a wreath near the graves of the Palestinian Black September terrorists who murdered Israeli athletes at the 1972 Munich Olympics. You can see why, after all these sordid details trickled out, Corbyn proved to be such electoral cyanide.
Let's take a look. I spoke at a meeting about the Middle East crisis in Parliament, and there were people there from Hezbollah, and I said I welcomed our friends from Hezbollah to have a discussion and a debate. I mean, that seems pretty fair. And I said I wanted Hamas to be part of that debate. I have met Hamas in Lebanon, and I've met Hezbollah in this country and Lebanon. The wider question is, Hamas and Hezbollah are part of a wider peace process. Even the former head of Mossad said that there has to be talks involving Hamas. I've also had discussions with people from the right in Israeli politics who have the same view, possibly that the state of Israel should extend from the river to the sea, as it is claimed people from the Palestinian side do. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, this is at the end of the day like a faction that you'd have to negotiate with for peace peace talks. So, I mean, it kind of makes sense that it's like, yeah, we kind of have to treat them. My point still stands. I don't really think Hamas has the interests of Palestinians at heart the same way the IDF doesn't. But yeah, I mean, I can see the rationale for that. If you want peace talks, you have to treat everybody kind of the same, even if they're not all necessarily the same, just to get everyone to the table. But continuing.
Helping to deliver Labour's worst election defeat since 1935. But there has been an unhelpful tendency.
Wait, did that have anything to do with that? I don't actually remember that being, well, wasn't there a big anti-Semitic claim against Corbyn from within the party, because there were pro-Zionists within the party that again, I don't know British politics as heavily since I'm an American. I follow real politics, but yeah, if I remember correctly, there was false claims about Corbyn being an anti-Semite or whatever, where it was just it was clearly just Zionists and pro-Israel activists kind of exploiting just kind of doing what they've always done, which is call people anti-Semitic for daring to say that Israel shouldn't occupy another people.
To see Corbyn's dalliances with Islamists
also, why does this
kind of personal moral failing on the part of him and his hangers-on. The truth is that the rot runs much deeper. Corbyn is just one useful idiot among many on the dregs of the British left, who have come to see Islamism not as the fascistic, terroristic menace that it is, but as a movement at the vanguard of global resistance to a malevolent West. This is the
What? Okay, wait a minute. First of all, well, I mean, this person's probably racist, and they probably just don't like brown people. Mainly because the idea that Islam is this uniquely, I remember a long time ago with the Sam Harris, Islam is clearly uniquely evil and a uniquely a whirlwind of bad ideas, when let's be honest here, the Abrahamic religions have not coincided with each other incredibly well, A, and B, have not been the most bloodless of religious, don't have the most bloodless religious doctrines in their history. So this whole Islam is just uniquely violent. No, Islam is the newest of any of the three Abrahamic religions, and that's why you're seeing because the way technology and the way that communication has spanned and grown over the last 1,000 years compared to when Judaism and when Christianity began, it's kind of obvious that you're going to see this concern trolling, suddenly all the Abrahamic religions have been cool, but Islam just went, the other two are fine, but Islam went too far. It's no, dude, read your holy text. They've all gone they all started too far and have continued to go too far. Spare me that. Is Western now? Well, Western interest, keep in mind.
Holy alliance that we've seen out in force on British streets in recent weeks, where Islamists and left-wingers have marched side by side, united in their hatred for Israel and barely batting an eyelid as anti-Semites shout Arabic war slogans and wave Jew-hating placards.
So, let me be clear. As an agnostic, I don't give a shit. When people do like can you believe that they like use like religious like war cries? Yeah, so what? So does Israel. Israel's a fucking ethno state with like a bunch of like Zionists who almost certainly say the same shit in the halls of power in that country. To them, it is just as much of a religious war, and also, let's be clear, like it's also a grab for power, as it is for like Islamists, as this guy describes them. Like, at the end of the day, fundamentalists are going to fundamentalism.
Welcome to the Islamo left, a sinister marriage of convenience that all good people, whether left or right, religious or irreligious,
yes,
must confront and reject.
Yes, the left
this
and
story
the right
begins
can
with the
agree on
radical
this.
left's abandonment of the working
Even though,
class.
like, let's be clear, fundamentalism is not a what's the word I'm looking for? You're not going to find a lot of fundamentalist religious types on the left. The only reason why you see a combination of fundamentalist Islamists and leftists in those protests are because they have a shared value, which that shared value is there are a ton of civilians being bombed and killed right now by the state of Israel, and we would like to see a cease to that indiscriminate bombing. That's the thing that like they share a goal in. But after that, there's usually a pretty stark split, mainly because, you have these people who are, again, fundamentalists on the Islam side who want to see like the extermination of Jews. And I've had conversations with people who say like stuff that goes a little over the fence with like, because they're so upset over what's happening over in Gaza that like, you kind of have to be like, whoa, let's take a chill pill. I get it. Let's remember that the state of Israel is what we're upset about, not Jews, not Judaism. We are not upset here with Judaism. Jews and Muslims have lived together for thousands of years and will continue to do so peacefully. Unfortunately, what we are seeing and what we see in Israel is what happens when one group is given the carte blanche to create an ethno-state and oppress freely the other group of people. And what we are seeing in Hamas and Hezbollah is a response to that oppression. Like, that's what we are actually seeing. And like, when you see like people who go, a bit overboard or go a bit over that fence, it's, as a leftist, I think it's our job to be like, hey, whoa. Let's remember how to ground our critiques here. And that's not always easy, and not everyone's always going to be reasonable. But that's kind of what happens when you have a global protest movement made up of multiple millions of people protesting for the rights of a minoritarian group. Yeah, anti-Semitism is not cool. And and Islamophobia, also not cool. Unfortunately for folks like this, they don't have a problem with Islamophobia. They have no issue with the moral, ethnic, and I guess logical grounding of being fundamentalists. What they have a problem with is the specific fundamentalism of Islam, which again, if you don't have a problem with fundamentalism, then it just becomes I like my fundamentalist group. I don't like your fundamentalist group. And it means that your critiques are hollow and bullshit. And there isn't really a critique other than I'm not one of them. They're the out group, so I oppose them.
And its decision to seek out new constituencies and
you don't have different politics. You have the exact same politics.
From the 1980s onwards, figures on the left perversely came to see working class Brits as a reactionary bloc on progress, while mistaking radical Islamists, among other groups, as a potentially revolutionary force. This coincided with the rise of state multiculturalism, which had the effect of elevating and funding.
Yes. Do you notice state multiculturalism? A rejection of multiculturalism in your society. Again, this guy favors the ethno-state of Israel and what it does to the minority of Palestinians, because again, he doesn't have a problem with like autocrats. He doesn't have a problem with any of this. He just wants to be the one on top. That's what he's really concerned with. The reason why you would sit here and be like, oh man, Islam is so bad because it can't coexist amongst, it's so violent and it can't coexist with people of other religions or ethnic backgrounds. Meanwhile, this guy is like, oh, you know, but we can't let people of like Islamic faith into the country. We can't let multiculturalism degrade our society. Like, it's the same. It's just fascist on fascist violence. That's all we're seeing is this guy. This guy is this guy is like some kind of weird ethno-nationalist, and he just doesn't like their ethno-nationalism. He wants his little space for his ethno group.
Reactionary Muslim community leaders who were falsely presented as the supposedly authentic voice of British Muslims. It is from this ecosystem of a growing Muslim identity politics that the grassroots British Muslim campaign against Salman Rushdie's satanic verses sprung up in the 1980s. Indeed, some of these groups were instrumental in pressuring Iran's supreme leader to issue his infamous fatwa against Rushdie. During the 1990s, sections of the left, these supposed radicals and progressives, became increasingly disturbingly sympathetic to the fundamentalists who continue to rage against Rushdie and his supposedly blasphemous book. Muslim identity politics was particularly appealing to a disoriented left because it mapped onto their support for Palestinian self-determination. Many leftists were prepared to overlook the dark heart of even full-blown Islamists in the interests of backing their supposed struggle against Western imperialism. The Palestinian...
Well, let's be really clear here. The opposition to Western imperialism in the case of Palestine is that the West, so like we're talking like England and Britain and in the US and stuff, carved out a piece of carved out Israel for the Jews after World War II, when that's not their land to carve up. Keep in mind, like, the issue at hand in Israel is that there were borders drawn not by the people who live on that land, but by occupying outside forces. The United States and Great Britain and European powers generally were the ones who were divvying up and drawing the border lines for the Middle East. So, like, it's one of these cases where it's like, wait a minute. The Middle East did not choose these border lines and did not choose, like, where we're going to cut off certain lands, where we're going to do this, where we're going to do that. You all came in, drew lines, and then backed up those lines through military action, through the military propping up of Israel. Israel has been able to hold on to the land that it has because the U.S. and Western forces have pretty much funded it well enough to be able to hold its land in the region, which, I don't know if you know this, causes regional instability. Our time in the Middle East as Western forces has been detrimental to the growth and expansion of the Middle East around the world. There's a reason why they're like, you go to Middle Eastern countries and you have either like piss poor fucking sand huts or you have like Dubai, right? Like, there's a reason why you have such stark wealth inequality. And it's because those societies have constantly been trifled with and, like, manipulated by Western forces. They haven't had the time or space to actually, turn into democracies, to actually see growth and political change throughout. Because too often the United States and other Western forces are too eager to manipulate their elections, to manipulate their political leadership, to dispose, just play around in the area enough so that, the U.S.'s interests are always kept at the top. And because of that, we see instability. And because of instability, it leads to immigration to other countries. So you flee to like places like the U.S. and Great Britain, and then people in Great Britain, like this asshole, go, "Oh, is it really a good idea to be letting this Islamist into our midst? Are they going to degrade our Western culture?" Even though it's Western culture that degraded a lot of those regions to begin with. Yeah. To be fair, the Eastern Bloc also. Yeah, and I mean, that goes without saying, obviously, the Russian invasion of Afghanistan and a whole bunch of that stuff. I'm speaking very broadly because I don't have, like, the best knowledge of history, but I know enough to know that we've played around in the area enough that, like, yeah, it's just, you, like, it's the same with South America. We've played so much around in South America. It's a wonder why a lot of those countries, again, see the exact same kind of wealth inequality, where you have the extreme poor, the extreme rich, and, like, that's kind of it. And it's corruption runs rampant. Like, it's just, and again, it's just because of instability in the area that we cause.
Palestinians became merely pawns in some grand conflict between the West and the rebellious global other. This is why today you'll notice that many leftists ignore Hamas's trampling of the rights of the Palestinians and Islamism's usurpation of the Palestinians.
Well, it's too bad there's not a nation state that has, like, a fighting force and a military, 100 times the ability of Hamas. You know, it's funny this guy says this, because at the end of the day, if Israel didn't like Hamas, they could go in and, you know, I don't know, depose Hamas, grant freedoms and rights and equal citizenship to Palestinians, and it's almost like Hamas would quickly lose any support or power. It's almost like Israel has had the ability to change every negative situation in Gaza since its occupation, but it hasn't, has it? It's almost like Hamas serves as a advantageous adversary for the IDF and for right-wing Israeli governments. Almost crazy that.
Palestinian national cause. Back in 1994,
fucking Israel could have liberated the Palestinians at any point, but they just chose never to.
A bizarre but revealing pamphlet entitled "The Prophets and the Proletariat." In it, Harman admitted that Islamism has some pretty fascistic qualities, from its opposition to modernity to its murderous intolerance and its brutal treatment of minorities, which is all very good of him. But the Islamists aren't all bad, he concluded. Islamists, Harman wrote, had opposed the state and elements of imperialism's political domination, particularly Hezbollah in southern Lebanon and Hamas in the West Bank and Gaza. In this, he presented Israel as little more than a Western imperial outpost. And so Islamism, Harman concluded, is born of a, quote, feeling of revolt that could be tapped for progressive purposes, unquote. Failed Western revolutionaries were increasingly keen to outsource radical agency to Islamists and to whitewash these reactionaries as a progressive force. This marriage of convenience was then consummated in the 2000s, in the aftermath of 9/11 and amid the war on terror. In 2002, the Stop the War coalition, dominated by the Socialist Workers' Party and the Communist Party of Britain, formed an alliance with the Muslim Association of Britain. Both Stop the War and the MAB had a pronounced presence on the anti-Iraq war protests of the early 2000s.
Woo!
And both groups are among the most prominent organisers of the quote-unquote pro-Palestine demos that have recently been roiling London.
Like, again, this is, like, what he's mostly describing, because he's trying to paint, like, coalition building as, like, this, they've sided, well, like, yeah, this is kind of how coalition building works, unfortunately. Like, uneasy coalitions are constantly built from groups that agree on a few things and then strongly disagree on others. But you do have, like, to build coalitions and to be successful in politics, you have to coalition build. You have to engage in that. You have to engage when there is agreement with those groups to reinforce your numbers.
The Muslim Association of Britain might sound benign, but it was founded by none other than Mohammed Sawalha, a former Hamas chief who now lives in London. His son is its vice chair. Over the years, leading figures from Stop the War have been pretty open about their fondness for Hamas. One of Stop the War's co-founders, John Rees, once dubbed these anti-Semitic terrorists a, quote, legitimate resistance movement, unquote.
I kind of agree and disagree on that a little bit. In terms of, like, okay. So it kind of breaks down like this. Are the actions of Hamas legitimate? I don't really think so. I don't really think their version of resistance, in terms of, like, a resistance movement, is incredibly helpful. I don't really know that like what Hamas does and engages in is, like, helpful to the Palestinian people. But I also really don't think Israel has given them much of an alternative, unfortunately. Israel has not been willing to negotiate with something like the Palestinian Authority, meaning that when the Palestinian Authority came to power and couldn't get anything done through diplomacy, what else are the people going to choose? Like, It's I know I'm sounding like a broken fucking record, but like this is what I mean when you interrogate it just a little bit, it just kind of breaks down that Israel has done everything in their ability to ensure that Hamas was the only power group in the city of Gaza and for the Palestinian people. So what else were they going to pick? You know, if your options are a stick or nothing to defend yourself, you're going to pick a stick every time. So, I mean...
At a Stop the War conference in 2006, Lindsey German, a leading SWP figure, said, quote, "Whatever disagreements I have with Hamas and Hezbollah, I would rather be in their camp. Democracy in the Middle East is Hamas, is Hezbollah," she said. Followers of the conflict will know that there hasn't been an election
really
in
fucking
Hamas-run
fuck
Gaza since
democracy,
2006,
yeah, but I mean,
when German made that ridiculous speech. Jeremy Corbyn was, of course, chairman of the Stop the War coalition from...
Yeah, again, and people talk about this, oh, Palestinians, keep in mind there are people who will do like Palestinians voted for Hamas. What were their other options? Their diplomatic option was a failure, so they went with the only other option they had, which was Hamas. Which even then, it's like, does it seem like Hamas has done anything to like improve their lives? No, not really. They're just continue to fight, you know, the war. They're just like, to them, it's just a resistance movement. And again, even so, I don't care who they voted for. Even if they voted for Hamas 10 times over the last 10 years, you still don't get to justify bombing civilians. That's still not a thing. The same way that I don't think, I don't think Al-Qaeda, I don't think it was good that Al-Qaeda killed a bunch of people on 9/11 just because we voted for bad governments like, bad presidents like Reagan and W and all the rest. Like, a citizenry is not held responsible for what its elected officials, commit, because they're, the elected officials don't always act within the interest of the American people. They're just not that transparent. Drop the white phosphorus. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And like, unless you think 9/11 was justified by Al-Qaeda, then like, but that's the problem with a lot of people who like run this line, right? Is they all think that Israel is justified in what they're doing because they voted for Hamas. And the obvious rebuttal to that is just, okay, so American citizens had it coming on 9/11? And people will go, whoa, that's crazy. It's like, well, that's what you just said. So you tell me, do Iraqi citizens have a right to kill Americans because of our bullshit invasion of their country? That vote was in 06. Yeah, it's like, it's happened in 06. And again, the options weren't really very robust. Now, were they?
2011 till 2015, when he became Labour leader. German served as his vice chair. Stop the War consolidated the fledgling relationship between sections of the hard left and actual Islamists. In doing so, it also faithfully undermined many of the things that used to be essential to being left-wing, such as universalism, reason, and humanism.
Yeah, are we still doing this? Are we still doing the left went too far? Are we still on this playbook? Like, goddamn, move on already.
Anti-imperialism was reduced to little more than anti-Westernism, transforming regressive Islamists from...
Well, wait. What's your evidence for that? What anti-imperialism wasn't acted upon? I mean, at the very least, most leftists support Ukraine. The Ukraine conflict, that's anti-imperialism. Like, what else are we talking about? I don't know what he's referring to. I'm assuming more British politics. I don't know.
From Iran or Gaza into anti-colonial heroes in the process. And all this has fueled identity politics here in the UK, transforming us from citizens with interests in common into members of competing ethno-religious groups. In particular, this anti-war left and their Islamist allies.
Wait, but a bunch of people from different ethnic backgrounds support Palestine. The Free Palestine movement is like multicultural. It is a multicultural, multi-ethnic movement. What are you talking about?
Allies have cultivated a divisive Muslim identity politics. Their cynicism paid off at the 2005 general election, when Respect, a Stop the War spin-off party led by George Galloway, won the East London seat of Bethnal Green and Bow.
Oh my God, a brown person won an election.
It was a triumph of militant anti-Westernism and pork barrel identity politics. These malign trends...
What's crazy to me is how often, like, people on the right decry, like, identity politics, and then that's, like, the only thing they really engage in is nativist, like, British politics.
...have since spread to the broader bourgeois left. Take Novara Media, a popular Corbynista YouTube channel and website run by a group of perennial postgraduates. In 2014, the Novara website published a glowing profile of Mohammed Daif as part of a Radical Live series. It described him as an uncompromising and shrewd freedom fighter who has contributed to the impressive evolution of the resistance in Gaza. Daif is the commander of Hamas's military wing and a vicious Islamist. 9 years after Novara's Puff piece was published, he became one of the architects of Hamas's brutal incursion into southern Israel earlier this year. No wonder that one of Hamas's compromising and shrewd freedom fighter who has contributed to the impressive evolution of the resistance in Gaza. Daif is the commander of Hamas's military wing and a vicious Islamist. 9 years after Novara's Puff piece was published.
Wait, 9 years? A decade later? Yeah, I think 9 years of continued occupation and continued what's it called? Starving out of the people of Gaza. I think 9 more years of that could possibly push you into what's the word? Into more extremist views. Yeah, it's only been 9 years. Fucking
he became one of the architects of Hamas's brutal incursion into southern Israel earlier this year. No wonder that one of Novara's editors, Rivka Brown, hailed the events of the 2nd of October
a lot more reasonable,
as a, quote,
became less
day of celebration
the more the occupation
democracy and human rights worldwide.
Carried
After
on.
Hamas launched its brutal pogrom in Israel, many were shocked at the apologism and even cheerleading that some on the British left engaged in. The Socialist Worker, the paper once edited by Chris Harman, greeted the massacre with the headline, "Rejoice." But while we certainly had a right to be shocked, greeted the massacre with the headline, "Rejoice."
Rejoice as Palestinian resistance humiliates racist Israel. Like the Tet offensive in Vietnam in '68, the Palestinian surprise attack has humbled imperialism. I want to read
the paper once
from Vietnam to Palestine. U.S. war criminal Kissinger. Tet was eventually a military failure. Estimated, according to God damn it. No, I want to read. I want to check this article because now I don't really trust when people gloss over like that. Like, yes, just trust me. The contents of this article. Okay, so let's take a look. What was it? Rejoice. Rejoice. Palestinian. Fuck, I can't fucking type. Palestinian. Let's take a look. What was this?
Greeted the massacre with the headline, "Rejoice."
Rejoice, Palestinian resistance. Okay, I feel like Hugh Mill will get me far enough. Rejoice is October 9th. All right, cool. Let's take a look. The Israeli state is humiliated, shaken, and scared. It has vowed to extract bloody revenge for its defeats last weekend. We need to break the enemy's bones, ran a commentary in the Israel Hayom, whatever, newspaper last Sunday. We need to bring it to its knees until it begs us to stop, to strike it as mercilessly and to pummel it viciously. The state is going to ignore all international law and inflict a collective punishment. They did do that. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, said Sunday that Israel occupation will, quote, halt electricity, fuel, and goods. He added, quote, we are heading into a long and grueling war. Within 24 hours, the UN reported that Israeli shelling of airstrike has driven 123,540 Palestinians from their homes in Gaza, a war crime, by the way. The suffering, murder, and massacres will be horrific. Everyone should rise up against them, but no revenge will wipe out what was achieved. What was achieved? Let's see. What was achieved? A right to resist Israel. Okay. In the face of escalating violence from the Israeli state, Palestinian fighters launched resistance attacks on Israeli towns, cities, and settlements on Saturday. This was published. Okay. Palestinian resistance groups, Hamas, and an attack following atrocities. Let's say Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared the military operation in Tel Aviv. Citizens of Israel, we are at war. And the city of midday. Okay, so this is talking about the October 7th attack. Good. This is 2023, right? Okay, good. And in the city of Palestinian fighters took over a police station, set it on fire. Palestinians also bulldozed a fence. Midday Israeli news channels had to admit the Palestinian resistance fighters effectively controlled all illegal Israeli settlements. Interesting. The Tet offensive. Okay. So this was just like the Israelis, the U.S. had ignored. Wait. The Tet offensive was the moment U.S. power was exposed as fallible, just like last weekend. It underlined that the oppressed are the subjects of history, not just victims. Just like the Israelis, the U.S. had ignored the coming storm. U.S. officials barricaded in their compound with the noise of ear-splitting generators blocking them from the real outside world. Israel's. So is this article just about, hey, you should have seen this coming? I mean, either way, I don't really think there should be again, I'm not somebody who believes that Hamas is a positive, representative of Palestinian resistance. I just don't really think it's a proper frame to view all of this. But yeah, it seems like this article is also kind of drawing a similar line to Vietnam in the way that this was a huge military and military and intelligence failure that was kind of embarrassing, which it should be, absolutely. But still, yeah, no, not good, not good at all. I also don't know how many people read this. I don't know how I don't live in the UK, so I have no idea how socialist. Let's take a look. Socialist worker popularity. Worker popularity? Let's take a look. Let's see. Let's see. No, this isn't. They have a different newspaper. About meetings, donate, join. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering how prominent this is, because I could go to Breitbart and be look at this crazy website with crazy right wingers, but the idea that Breitbart is incredibly popular is a bit out there. Influential, certainly, but worker publication, maybe publication. Publication. Here we go. This is what I wanted. Let's see. Zimbabwe. 1968, monthly published, International Socialist. The U.S. Okay. They seem, certainly long-standing. Yeah, I just don't know how relevant this is to I'm assuming it has to be more relevant in British politics, I guess. Just take their word for it on that one. This seems like a pretty big organization. They've been around since the 70s, so imagine if a country was building illegal settlements in America and imposing apartheid on the Americans. Yeah, imagine. Crazy thought. It's almost like that would create I don't know, resistance fighters that take it too far. Yeah, who could have thought?
But while we certainly had a right to be shocked at such inhuman and depraved talk, we probably shouldn't have been surprised. For decades now, Britain's radical left has been morally self-immolating. Its deranged alliance with Islamists has stripped it of any claim it might once have had to the moral high ground. So now, weekend after weekend, we see supposed anti-racists and anti-fascists march alongside people chanting for the ethnic cleansing of Jews from Israel.
Yes, they're gonna so they're gonna be from the river to the sea is genocidal, which at the end of the day it's it's pretty much up to interpretation. You could say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and people will be you're saying genocide the Jews. And it kind of, from what I gather, it kind of just depends on who you're talking to, because if it's somebody like me, then it's more of a rallying cry for the Palestinian people to be treated as free citizens. And from the river to the sea just means in all of Israel, Palestinians should be free citizens. That's what it means to me and to a lot of people. But to like a jihadist, from the river to the sea means exterminate the Jews. So it's very much like, yeah, it kind of depends on how much you really want of how much like how fair you want to be to the person you're talking about. And this clearly is not going to be very favorable.
They can dress
it's
this up as
0.01% of the traffic compared to a publication like The Independent.
It
Okay.
really is nothing of the sort.
Okay, so maybe a lot smaller
the
then.
supposed left-wingers have embraced
It doesn't sound
barbarism.
like based on just looking at that website, it doesn't seem like it's like huge. I'm sure it's influential in the left, but it's like, yeah, the left isn't like, if we go and look, like the left isn't in the power hubs, you know, like liberals hold the power hubs and can really like swing public opinion a lot better.
They've got into bed with bona fide fascists. Identity
Like
politics.
if it was
has
The
rotted their
Guardian,
brains
I'd be like,
and
oh
their
wow,
souls.
that's a pretty big publication. Spiked. Yeah, I mean, okay, that was fine, I guess. I don't know. It really seems like a lot of times what I find is there are people who are just like, we're gonna be as we're gonna treat this with as much skepticism as possible. And also it seems like that channel likes to do the left has gone too far, reasonable people in the center. They just try to do the center meme, which I think is kind of old. Like just put your priors out there already. But anyway, okay. So the Tim Pool video I know is going to be a bit longer. I'm trying to decide if we want to do that or maybe save it for next stream. Just because it's already been, yeah, we're like right at the 3-hour mark. No, maybe we'll save it just so I'm not running late. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm thinking what we'll do is we'll save Tim Pool for Monday because it's about Gen Z apparently becoming more conservative. Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. So we'll save that for that since that has a little bit more electoral. What in the fuck is going on? Okay, no, stop that. More electoral, what's the word? Has more of an electoral angle. But yeah, because we got to go pretty soon here. So yeah. What else? What do I have to say? Monday, we'll be back. Usually around noon-ish, lunch-ish time. It just depends on what time I can, if I can get enough sleep and wake up and prep and everything. Otherwise, if you, I got to do the usual, they've already done it. But yeah, if you'd enjoyed any of what you saw, if you learned anything, if you just got some catharsis, if you just hung out and lurked in chat, you should do what Curslash just did and hit that follow button. It really helps out the channel, helps out me. Also, if you're on YouTube, you should hit the subscribe button. I will be putting up as many segments as I can. I've only been able to edit a little bit of last stream, so I'm probably going to be up pretty late tonight, most likely doing a bunch of edits, so keep a lookout for that. If you want to see older segments, those are always up there. Same with the VODs, are always up on the YouTube channel. It's linked and stuff. Otherwise, that's it for me today. It's been like 3 hours. My voice is starting to waver a little bit again. Even after the water, but either way, everyone, you all have a lovely evening. Stay safe out there. Be cool and continue the good fight. I'll see everybody Monday, and bye-bye. Ooh, also, okay, if you're on Twitch, I might actually send you. Let me see if I can send you to somebody. I know I'm back. Let me see if I can send you to somebody. Okay, so something I gotta be a lot better on, something I've been trying to be a bit better on is, what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for? Is networking a little bit more. I really need to get better at like reaching out to other folks and trying to get a few like that's the one thing I'm like incredibly what's the word, not what's the word? Antisocial to a degree. And certainly when it comes to online, being like an online entity, I'll admit I'm not really great at what's the word? Great at doing that. So I'm gonna send you. Who can I send you to? Who is anybody on right now? I'm not sending you to Haas because he's got 20. God damn! Can you imagine 20K people watching a stream? God damn. I guess Zan is on. This got like one person. Fuck it. I'm gonna send you to Xander Hall. So at the very least, I don't know. Like I said, I just need to network more. Need to get better at the whole other half of this besides producing stuff. But anyway, same thing as usual. Bye bye. I'll see y'all later. Everyone have a lovely day. Wait, what? Huh? What? Huh? Wait, huh? Did it not? Okay. Okay. Oh, I have to wait till the stupid countdown. Sorry, I have to wait for the stupid countdown. Anyway, let's hit the transition. Bye bye. See y'all Monday around noon.